Kurt?
The selectman might want these, probably not, but just in case. Because if I bring up a subject they might want to talk about, but probably want to talk about later.
So is this something you're going to give them during public participation?
Yeah, but they probably want to talk about it, just in case.
Okay, is this copies for everybody? Is that what we're doing?
5 copies.
Okay, I'm going to make one.
That's a really dangerous thing.
This is Tim Johnson, and the Brattleboro Selectboard, their first regular April meeting is coming up in just a bit here on BCTV. And among the items they are discussing tonight, rules of conduct, board assignments, and goal setting. And then as liquor commissioners, the Select Board will discuss the process for art gallery or bookstore permits for malt or Venus beverages. In addition, second-class liquor and tobacco license renewal for 7-Eleven, and a first-class liquor and entertainment license for Barnaby's Productions, Inc., a first-class liquor license for Elliott Street Fish, Chips, and more. Under the header of wastewater and water and sewer commissioners, the monthly wastewater treatment plant upgrade. And under new business, the Police and Fire Facility Committee is expected to be appointed. 17 people have submitted applications, and it's expected the board will look at how that committee shall be put together. In addition, the repair options for the Nelson Withington skating rink will be discussed, an intercreditor agreement with Shiretown Properties, a bid award for the Prospect Hill and Morningside Cemetery seasonal maintenance, a contract for net metering with Integrated Solar of Brattleboro is expected to be discussed and possibly voted upon. A bid award for the Strand Avenue reconstruction, a contract to be ratified for engineering services on the Main Street Sidewalk project, the naming of a private drive. The board is being asked to approve the name of a private drive off Upper Dummerston Road, and they'll also schedule a goal-setting session. The Brattleboro Select Board is next here on BCTV.
Good evening. It's April 2nd, 2013, and we're reconvening our first regularly scheduled April meeting of the Brattleboro Select Board. We know that the meeting has been officially warned from the initial convening of the meeting at 5 o'clock. The first matter on the agenda is to approve minutes. We have minutes from March 19, 2013, and March 25 of 2013. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve both sets of minutes, March 19th and March 25th.
Does anybody have any comments, questions, edits, corrections to those minutes? I would note that we have three new members on the board, and I think that the role of the board in considering minutes is to adopt them and to approve them for inclusion in the public record. And I've heard people take the position in the past that not having been present at the meeting is a reason to abstain, but I'm not clear that that's a necessary vote. So hopefully we'll have votes from people who were not in attendance to approve the minutes as well. Is there anybody who's in attendance at the meeting who wants to speak to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the March 19 and March 25 minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Excellent. That carries 5-0. The next item on the agenda is Chair's remarks. So this is the first meeting of the new Select Board, although we've had a chance to conduct some interviews for the Police Fire Facility Committee earlier today. I want to welcome everybody and congratulations to the new members. And thanks for your confidence voting for me as chair. All I'll say right now is that my goal in chairing these meetings is to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak fully to the issues that are presented to the board, both members of the Select Board and people who are in attendance. As a general matter, other than convening the meeting, I will make an effort to speak last among Select Board members, making sure that all Select Board members have a chance to speak first. And we'll try to hear from everybody before there's multiple comments to the extent that's possible. We are facing some significant issues over the course of the coming year. We have a packed agenda tonight. Happy holidays to everybody from the last 2 weeks, and we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the town manager's comments.
And I have none.
All right. The next item on the agenda is Select Board comments and committee reports. The only thing I'll note is that we changed the name of this item. It used to just be Select Board committee reports, but we wanted to make sure that members of the Select Board, if they had anything to comment on, also had an opportunity to do so, so it wasn't just the chair and town manager who were doing that. So are there any Select Board comments and committee reports before we turn to the individual items?
Actually, I think I have a border comment.
ahead.
In the documents that I'm supposed to sign as clerk, they're the minutes for the special organizational meeting. Did we approve those?
Yeah,
Okay.
both of them.
Thank you.
Cool. So the next item on the agenda is rules of conduct. And the Brattleboro Select Board operates on the rules of conduct that we reconsider and adopt at the first business meeting of the new board. Those were circulated to Select Board members as part of the materials that we get for review before the meetings. And they're also posted online. So the question for right now is whether any members of the Select Board have any comments, questions, or suggestions, or any proposed edits to the rules of conduct as they've been presented. Anybody here? All right, is there anybody who's in attendance who wants to speak about the Brattleboro Select Board rules of conduct? Well, hearing no comments, I guess we're ready for a motion to approve the rules of conduct as presented.
So moved.
Any further comments about that? All those who are in favor of approving the Brattleboro Select Board rules for conduct of meetings and hearings as presented, please say aye. 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 Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. The next item on the agenda, sounds like I'm talking a lot. The next item on the agenda is board assignments. Barb, maybe you could identify the committees and the way in which Select Board participates in those.
There are several committees, some more often than others, some as needed. We have the Capital Grant Review Board, and that is comprised of 2 members of the Select Board, 2 members of the Town School Board, and 2 people chosen at Representative Town Meeting. The people from Representative Town Meeting are Louis Fagelson and Tim O'Connor, who were appointed by the town moderator. That meets as needed when we have larger projects that would have possible grants. An example of when they met last was a $20,000 grant for the license plate readers for the police department, because that was actually kind of a new program, a new piece of equipment that was being established. We have the Police Fire Building Committee. That is to have one representative, a liaison from the Select Board. With the exception of the Capital Grant Review, the Capital Grant Review Board, the members vote. The police fire facility, that may or may not, that is not a voting member of the committee, because anything that committee decides will come back to this body. The rental housing improvement program, that's a loan committee. It meets as needed. It hasn't. It may need a couple times, maybe a year, depends. The small business assistance program, again, that kind of seems to go in spurts. Although we are hoping over this course of the following year to kind of do a little more marketing on that. And those are loan programs, either as they say, either for housing improvement, rental housing improvement, or for small businesses. Both have a maximum, I believe, of $40,000. The Traffic Safety Committee meets monthly. It oversees any kind of ordinance change that would require street markings, street signs. It's the Pedestrian Safety Committee reports to the Safety Committee. It is actually responsible for parking spaces and meters. It meets monthly, and the board member is a voting member of that committee. The wastewater treatment plant upgrade oversight committee. This is one the board may or may not want to have someone on. It is the project that we have going on that now is we have the Spring Tree pump station and the Black Mountain pump station, and the other project is winding down. We'd had a committee, a select board member on that committee, but I think over the last year we actually haven't, because it has been going on for some years.
Barb, I was still on that committee, so I don't know if so I don't know if that interferes at all with it.
You may want to just stay on it, or that would be
Yeah.
one of the possibilities. And the Wyndham Regional Commission, that is one where we have we typically try to have a board member, and this year we'd also request that the planning director. We have 2 slots for that from the Wyndham Regional Commission, and I would request that our planning director, Rod Francis, be one of those people, because we are trying to develop, we do more and more work in collaboration with the Wyndham Regional Commission, and we'd like to have the planning director more intimately involved.
So we had 2 or 1 on Capital Grants Review Board? 1?
There are 2 on the Capital Grant Review Board.
All right. So we're looking for 2 people from Select Board to serve on Capital Grants Review Board, 1 on Police Fire, and we can either do the Police Fire now or when we constitute that committee. That's a question to consider. 2 for Wyndham Regional Commission, but we're asked to make one of those the planning director, 1 for Small Business Assistance Program, 1 for Rental Housing Improvement, 1 for Traffic Safety, and then potentially 1 for wastewater treatment. Are there any questions or comments from anybody on the board about the committee assignments?
I would like to keep my rental housing assignment.
Any other comments at this point?
I'd like to keep my wastewater treatment plant assignment.
Hold on, let me make notes here.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Ken, and that's John, and I'd like to keep my traffic safety unless somebody wants it. All right, so maybe we'll take nominations for those 3 and we'll go from there. Do we have nomination for rental housing improvement? Wait, is there anybody in attendance who wants to speak to the issue of committee nominations or committee appointments from the Select Board? All right, then can we have nomination for the rental housing improvement program?
I move that we nominate Ken Schneck.
Are there any other nominations for the rental housing improvement committee?
It's a slam dunk, Ken.
All right, so that closes nominations. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of Ken Schneck's continuing to serve on the rental housing improvement program committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? So that carries 5-0. Congratulations, Ken.
Thank you.
Did you vote for yourself?
No.
All right, 4-0. And then can we have nomination for the wastewater treatment committee?
I nominate John Allen for wastewater treatment.
Are there any further nominations? All right, that closes the nominations for the wastewater treatment committee. Any further discussion on that nomination? Hearing none, all those in favor of John Allen continuing to serve on the wastewater treatment facility oversight committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Did you vote for yourself?
I abstain.
All right, so that carries 4-0.
The agenda says that we don't have to do it this way. Do we want to?
Is that right?
Yeah, it says committee assignments may occur by consensus and do not require a motion.
The rules of conduct, though, actually do.
I was just trying to short
All right.
Sorry, yeah.
Thanks.
I apologize.
Is there any nominations
making it
for
quicker.
traffic safety committee?
What?
Traffic safety committee?
Sure, I nominate David Gardner.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Any discussion? That closes nominations and discussion. All those in favor of me serving on the traffic safety committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries 5-0. So, does anybody want to serve on small business assistance committee?
I'd be willing to.
Would you like to? All right. Anybody else want to serve on the committee? Well, then I nominate David Scholes for the Small Business Assistance Program Committee. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. Any discussion? All those in favor of Dave Scholes serving on that committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Following my leader.
All right, very well, Anybody abstaining? That carries 5-0. Wyndham Regional Commission. Would you like to?
Excellent.
Excellent. Somebody want to nominate Kate?
O'Connor for
Yeah.
the commission?
Excellent. Excellent. Now, I also nominate Rod Francis for the second town slot. So that would be Kate O'Connor and Rod Francis on the Wyndham Regional Commission. Are there any other nominations?
So we did get an email from Dora expressing interest in continuing on. Does this then preclude her from doing that?
If you want to nominate her, we can vote in a round, and that would be an acceptable way to proceed.
Why did I open my mouth? I highlighted the email, so I will nominate Dora Bublis to the Wyndham Regional Commission.
Are there any other nominations? That's 3 nominations. So this is an interesting, is there any public comment on these nominations? So this is an interesting procedure.
Sorry.
No, that's nice for everybody to see it before we do it for police fire. The way we vote for committee appointments is we go in a round in the order in which people were nominated and continue to vote until somebody doesn't have as many votes as anybody else. So, all those in favor of Kate O'Connor for Wyndham Regional Commission, please say aye.
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 I feel bad voting for myself.
All right, so Kate O'Connor's got 5 votes. No, she voted for herself. All right, and then all those in favor of Rod Francis serving on the Wyndham Regional Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 5. And then all those in favor of Dora Babulis serving on Wyndham Regional Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. So Ms. O'Connor's got 5 votes, and Mr. Francis got 5 votes, and Dora's got 1. So Kate and Rod are going to be our representatives to the Wyndham Regional Commission.
It's good practice.
Yeah. Is anybody willing to serve on the Capital Grants Review Board?
I'd be willing.
Dave's willing. Anybody else?
Since my dad's on it, I
No.
think I
No,
don't
it's
wanna-
Tim Cuthbertson,
Oh,
isn't
it's
it?
Tim Cuthbertson. Oh, my bad. No, sorry.
But remember, we also need a police fire person. So, you want to be on capital grants?
I'll do
You
it
want
if no one else wants to.
Okay, anybody else want to be on police fire? All right, is there anybody?
fire?
So, I guess we've got nominations,
Capital.
deemed nominations for David Scholes and Kate O'Connor for Capital Grants Review Board. Any other nominations? Anybody who's in attendance want to speak to those nominations? All those in favor of Mr. Scholes and Ms. O'Connor serving on Capital Grants Review Board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. And then the last one is police fire. So, Who on the board wants to serve on Police Fire Committee?
I would-
Would you like to?
Great.
All right.
That's the big
Anybody
one.
else?
right?
It
You
is
wanna
big
serve
one,
before you
right?
know who's going to be on it.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, is there any
I'm
other,
so quiet, it'll be fine.
all right, any other nominations at this point for serving on Police Fire? Excellent. So all those, anybody who's in attendance want to speak to that nomination? All those in favor of John Allen serving on Police Fire Committee, Facility Oversight Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? All right, so that carries 5-0. Excellent. The next item on the agenda is goal setting. And Barb, maybe you could speak, or Ken, maybe you could speak to how we did the goal setting last year.
Sure.
And, you know, then we'll talk about this year's process.
I didn't actually speak to it and endorse it because we got together at a separate meeting to talk about our goals. We each brought 2 or 3 prime goals that we were working on and compiled them into one list. I thought it was great that the list was not delineated by name, but represented all of our goals that came together to form the select board goals for the year. And it was really nice to do that separate from a normal select board meeting. And talked about them briefly, spoke about our 2 or 3 goals that were priorities for us. And then I think a key piece for us was either quarterly or it was a couple times, we returned to those goals to check in to see where we were at. And we didn't do this 2 years ago, and we did it last year, and I thought that was a great improvement.
Is there anybody else on Select Board who wants to speak to the process for setting Select Board goals or how we would proceed in that regard? Barb, do you have anything to add about that? You facilitated the process last year. You did a good job, so.
Yeah, if people want to, it's sometimes easier if people get their goals in a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
We can put them together, collate them, because sometimes there are overlaps. In your packets, it was a summary of last year's goals with the check marks, but the things that we kind of took care of. And that's just to give you an idea of the kind of the diversity of the goals, that they really were a variety of areas.
I'll just say that I'm in favor of proceeding that way as well. It helped to focus some of our work, and we were able to track some of the matters that we were able to follow through on. The plan is to schedule the meeting at the end of this business meeting tonight. So it's on the agenda again at the end just to pick the time. But I wanted to make sure that it was discussed in public session where we were headed before just picking the time at the end of the meeting when there's less people here. Is there anybody who's in attendance who wants to speak to or have any questions about the process by which we're going to be doing goal setting? All right. There's no action on that one. So the next item on the agenda is public participation. This is an opportunity for anybody who's in attendance to speak to any issue that's not on the agenda and to speak to that in front of the community and the board. Generally, we'll provide about 2 minutes for that. Mr. Dimes. Please identify yourself.
Hello, I'm Kurt Dimes. I'm a Brattleboro resident. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
I think the change in the board will allow a friendlier climate in relations between the board and downtown, and the board and the people, and even the board and the RTM. So I'm looking forward to that. And Mr. Gartenstein in particular has been very respectful of the RTM, and particularly sensitive and candid and responsive to the public's attitudes about the police fire bond. At our last RTM representative town meeting, there was obvious change in the support for the bond, and the representative town meeting overwhelmingly approved a resolution, which I will read. The Brattleboro Representative Town Meeting urges the Brattleboro Select Board to carefully scrutinize the budget impacts of bonding and borrowing under the previously approved police and fire facilities project plan prior to taking any final action on bonding or going out to bid on the projects, in order to find reductions in costs if available, and to delay or modify all or part of the projects as they deem appropriate, and having done so, that they determine their position to a recommended budget plan for the following years that will produce only modest total budget increases, similar to the modest 1.9% budget increase achieved for this next year. So I was hoping that the board would soon schedule a discussion on this issue, as I think it is incumbent on the board to recognize and debate the actions of the RTM. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We actually have an agenda item coming up for appointment of the committee, and I expect that'll be a topic of discussion then as well. So I didn't want to cut you off, but we'll be talking about that in a little while. Ms. Carter.
Welcome. It's
Hi.
nice to see fresh faces here. I'm here because a little over a year ago, there was an unfortunate incident in one of our playgrounds where a town employee shot an abandoned dog, and a number of us made the decision to go before the CPCC, the Community Police Communication Committee. And this committee was implemented by the late Gail Cooper. And it was in response to the Woodward shooting. So when incidents of relevance came up, we would have a genre, a venue in which we could work with the town. And as the process went on, Barbara and I just came to a formal acknowledgement last month, about a year after the incident, because my personal experience working with the CPCC was I came to light that there was questionable past conduct with the employee directly involved. And it took time, it took lawyers, but we did come to a formal agreement, which I greatly appreciate. And what I've brought for the select board is just the documents of the last several correspondence. The first correspondence is a letter actually from the CPCC to myself in January. The second is the correspondence between Barb and I that brought the formal agreement. And then the last several are the preceding correspondence, and they're not necessarily in chronological order, but the way you'll see they're easy to follow. And also, I just wanted to thank the professionalism and time that Barb and Chief Wren and Captain Fitzgerald put into this. And I brought a couple plaques, one for Barb and one for Chief Wren and Captain Fitzpatrick. They're not here tonight, so I'll give them at the next CPCC meeting. But it's a token of thank you for your professionalism and your patience.
Thank you.
And it's my hope as a citizen that from something unfortunate, something very positive will happen. A lot of us got a lot of support from the public, but there were a lot of detractors that thought it was a very trivial matter. However, a lot of us made the decision that in a way it was a symptom of a bigger issue that's permeating our culture and our country now. And I am hopeful with the CPCC and the town of Brattleboro. And the plaque is a quote. Whoops, I need my glasses. From Robert Ingersoll, and I will read it before I give it to Barb. The superior man is providence of the inferior. He has eyes for the blind, strength for the weak, and a shield for the defenseless. He stands erect by bending above the fallen. He rises by lifting others. And I hope you put it somewhere noticeable, not necessarily on the wall behind the latrine, but somewhere where people will notice it. And I'll give Chief Wren his at the next CPCC meeting. I'm committed to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very nice, thank you.
strongly and keep them for your own records.
Thank you.
You have
I have one. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Terry, do you have a copy? Terry, do you have a copy for the? Thank you.
And Ms. Carter, thank you very, very much for participating in the process, and for working through,
And thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It really makes town government stronger, when you participate.
Yeah, thank you.
Paul?
Good evening, I'm Paul Cameron, Town Energy Coordinator, and I just wanted to say a few words about the Vermont Home Energy Challenge. The challenge is a statewide program sponsored by Efficiency Vermont to make more homes and apartments energy efficient in 2013. And almost every homeowner and landlord can benefit by doing a professional energy audit and doing further work such as air sealing and insulation. The savings can really be remarkable. The average household can reduce their energy bills by 20 to 30% by doing a project. That's an average of $1,000 per household per year. And in addition to the savings, we have some special incentives as part of the challenge. You can get a professional energy audit from a local contractor for $250 this year, which is $150 off the going rate. There are also financial incentives available from Efficiency Vermont and a federal tax credit. So we encourage every homeowner and landlord to consider getting a professional audit and doing work this year. You'll not only be saving money, but you'll be supporting our local economy, helping to create jobs, reducing our carbon footprint, and our dependence on foreign oil. And if anyone would like further information, folks can contact me at 251-8135 or visit our website at brattleboroenergychallenge.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to make a comment during public participation? Well, thank you, everybody. We're ready for a motion to convene as liquor commissioners.
I move that we convene as liquor commissioners.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. First item on the agenda under liquor commissioners is continuation of the discussion from February 5, 2013 relating to art gallery or bookstore permit for malt or vinous servings. So either the town manager or Ken might speak to that issue.
You can start.
I'll start. And actually, the town clerk, Annette Cappy's here, and she was actually the one who started this whole thing.
We'll recognize Ms. Cappy.
Do you want to just set the framework, Annette?
Good evening. As some of you heard me speak a month or so ago, a couple months ago, I guess now, a permit now for an art gallery or a bookstore is something new through DLC. The permit differs from a first class or second class license. A first class or second class license, liquor license, allows an establishment to sell alcohol on a continuous basis for an entire year until their license is up for the following year. A permit is a one-time event through DLC, and there are several different permits, but the art gallery and the bookstore permit is something new. We have not granted one here. It's very different from a lot of their other permits in that there is very, very little that is discussed in statute. The only reference that you will find in state statute regarding this new permit is a one-paragraph definition of what an art gallery or bookstore permit is. We had several questions that came up when we first began discussing this, and we received some follow-up information from DLC, but there is very little to be coming from DLC because there is just nothing there. Each event may serve wine or beer for up to 6 hours, and there are no limits on the number of permits an establishment could apply for. I think what our big concern was what is an art gallery? on the first Friday of each month, all of downtown practically is an art gallery. And there is no definition of what an art gallery is through DLC. And in my contacts with DLC, they made it very clear that they will not be establishing the definition of a gallery. So it would be this board probably that may want to establish that definition if you choose to do these permits. There are no regulations, which I found quite interesting. There are no regulations on where these establishments purchase their alcohol. If you have a first or second class license, you have to purchase your alcohol through the state of Vermont. But for a permit, there are no requirements. You can go anywhere you want and buy a bottle of wine or some beer and serve it. You can sell it or you can give it away. You just need to have someone on your staff trained, take the course to serve alcohol. You cannot hire a professional bartender. You can't bring someone else in to do it for you. It has to be someone on your staff. So if you are a bookstore or if you are a jeweler, one of your staff members would have to go through the training, and it can be done, I think it can be done online, right? Right, Ken? Yeah. So I did have some contact with Bill Manch, who is the local inspector, and he just wanted to point out a few things in an email to me stating that all applicants are required to submit a valid certificate of DLC training with each permit request. He also says that in his opinion, if an establishment were to request many permits over the course of a year, DLC may start drawing the line on the number. And what I thought was most important in his memo was he says, remember, the town can tighten or add restrictions regarding liquor laws, such as requiring licensees to close earlier than allowed by law, requiring more training, or simply not allowing this type of permit in town. You just cannot expand on these permits beyond what the state allows. So you can make them less than what the state allows, but not more than what the state allows. So.
Ken or Barb, did you want to follow up on what Annette had to offer? Since it was really your agenda item last time.
Well, for the record, I came in here tonight willing to compromise, and then Annette started speaking, and I'm right back where I started.
Oh dear. My apologies.
No, it's okay. So, to recap, you know, when this was brought in front of us, David raised the question of, well, let's go back to the statute, and we thought we didn't have that on hand. We assumed that there was more language from the state that would have given us guidance. And after that meeting, so we put a bit of a moratorium, not a bit, we put a moratorium on approving these until we convened as a board. After that meeting, working with the Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition, they found the actual minutes of the state legislature when this was proposed, and I poured through those minutes, and there is nothing more in those minutes than what is before us now. It literally just appeared from one iteration of an economic, agricultural incentive bill to the next version. Out of nowhere, this permit appeared with no direction, no help from the legislature. So I guess my first piece is, and this is where you tell me if I'm wrong, any place can apply for a special event permit.
Are you referring
Not
to the art gallery?
talking
Not talking about the special event, yes.
An art gallery could apply for a special event
Yes.
permit. So right now, there's not a place in town that could not serve for a night through the special event permit.
Mm-hmm.
Is that? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
You're correct.
You got to tell me that I'm right, because
Yeah.
I'll just keep going. So we already have this on the books as a possibility. For me, and again, I would like to again say I was willing to come in and compromise, and I'm just not there anymore. The art gallery and bookstore permit, all it represents to me is just a severe severe relaxing of the standards that we already have in town for granting the ability of a place to serve alcohol for the night. And given that they still have that ability through a more established process with stringent not even stringent, normal, responsible guidelines, I'm still at the place where I don't I don't feel that we need to be granting these permits. And do want to say, and again, someone tell me if I'm wrong, in our role as liquor commissioners, we can decide that we don't grant these permits.
Anybody else from the select board?
Yeah, and I kind of, after reading through everything that I read through, it just seems like we're almost opening up a can of worms here. And I'd have to read more, and I didn't read the minutes from when you people had talked about it the last time, but it just seems, on the surface, it just, there's something unsettling about it.
I'm sorry, one more piece.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think I bristled at the word when it was used a few months ago, but I have come to understand, the word that came up when we talked about postponing this till now was that it was arbitrary, and I think that it was arbitrary because there was an assumption, this is what I believe, on behalf of the board, that there was going to be more text that we could turn to that would guide us, and that text is just not there. And as I said a couple months ago, I am more than willing to spearhead another committee to develop new guidelines, but I don't feel the need to do that given that any of these places can already get a special events permit.
Anybody else on the select board? Annette?
In addition to the special event, when we talk about a special event, mostly what we use the special event permits for would be the Harris Hill ski jump type of thing. But what we have in addition to the special event already on the books through DLC is a catering permit, where there are establishments that have a first-class liquor license already, but they also have a catering license, so they can cater to different places. There are a couple outfits, establishments in town that do quite a bit of catering, like to the Brattleboro Museum, or they'll cater to the Latches. And what they're doing is taking their first-class license for their establishment and transferring it to another venue for a particular event. But they have an established first-class license. They've been through the training, all of their people have been through the training. Their livelihood depends on their alcohol license. Where if you have, my concern with a bookstore or art gallery permit is if their primary function is to sell books or sell jewelry or whatever, and they have a permit and they are lax in enforcing the regulations and there's a catastrophe, what is the repercussion for the establishment?
Or the town.
Where someone who holds a license has a lot at stake. They're not going to, in most cases, they're careful, and what this board has been trying to do is to make the local establishments responsible for what they're doing. And I think this board has done a wonderful job in bringing the establishments up to speed with what is expected of them and to toe the line. And they are. But this has nothing. So,
David?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on here. The special events permit that we can currently give, if a bookstore downtown wanted to serve beer and wine on a gallery walk night, they could apply for that permit. What's the different? Is the training any different than what they would get with this new application? It's the same training?
I believe it's the same training. If they were, and it probably wouldn't necessarily be the special event, it would be the catering permit. So, probably giving some business here, but Wyndham Wines. Wyndham Wines sells wine, but they also have a catering permit. So if you were a vendor down on Main Street and you wanted to have something on Gallery Walk or whatever to entice people to come in, you could hire Wyndham Wines to come in and cater. You would pay Wyndham Wine, and you would be paying them for their alcohol that they've purchased through the state of Vermont. If there were an incident where there were a catastrophe, something happened, you wouldn't be on the line, it would be Wyndham Wine, because they are the license holder.
Right. So the bookstore would be the one taking the risk and trusting their employees to not to follow the training. So I'm not seeing a difference. I'm not seeing enough of a
But David, I don't think right now that you can go before Annette and get a permit.
If you're a bookstore?
If you're a bookstore. Am I correct, Annette?
You could apply for one.
You could apply for one.
It would come before this board.
Right, but there's...
But if the bookstore did, they would have to get the same training as if someone had this permit, or someone came for this permit.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what the difference is.
Anybody else on the board? All right, I don't think it'll be a surprise from my comments at the last meeting. I think that the legislature has made a decision to authorize another type of license, and I think that the Select Board as liquor commissioners have the ability to impose whatever restrictions and qualifications on that license that we feel are necessary. And there are criteria that were adopted. They're in Section H of the Rules of Conduct. We could add additional conditions requiring that everybody who's serving alcohol at a gallery undergo the training and provide certificate of having undergone the training. And we could require that a gallery have insurance in place that would provide coverage in the event of any sort of harm arising as a result of their serving or over-serving of alcohol. And we could then allow this type of license, which is authorized by statute, just like any other. And they would have to come in front of us applicants for a permit, just like any other applicant. That was my position
And
for...
then they purchase the alcohol from the state of Vermont.
We could include that as well. I mean, those would be things to be considered. But I personally don't see a reason to adopt a blanket prohibition on allowing galleries, which are allowed by the state of Vermont, to serve alcohol under certain circumstances, prohibiting it here in Brattleboro, because it seems to me that it's within our discretion to regulate it appropriately, and we certainly can do so. But that's my position. John?
But the state of Vermont hasn't really said what a gallery is. I mean, so that's where I'm having a hard time with it, is that somebody hangs a picture up and all of a sudden they're a gallery. And
The first Friday of every month.
yeah, the first, and all of a sudden, I just think we're opening ourselves up for a lot of liability and big problem. And I would just rather see a blanket thing that says we don't allow them. But that's me just at the first meeting and the first reading of all this stuff. I wasn't privy to all this stuff before.
Ken?
You say Ken?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I just want to say that I don't think we're just opening ourselves up to liability. I really do believe that we're opening up quite a few businesses in town to liability, and it's not our job to shield other places from liability.
As liquor commissioners, it is.
Right. And so there is, and Beth can speak to this better than I can, but there is a proof of insurance issue here, and there is a piece that places that serve alcohol have factored into their policies.
Right.
I don't know, I guess if we adopt so many guidelines to the point where it's prohibitive,
Right.
which will be from my very limited reading of the statute, because there's not limited in my capacity, but in the states to write language. If it's so prohibitive, then what's the point?
What's the point?
Anybody else on the board? Barb?
From my position, where I'm sitting, I think it's pretty clear why there's this allowance for, bookstores or galleries to have permits. They're seen as every so often, you go down to some places and, if there's a special event at a bookstore or at a gallery, they may have alcohol, typically, whether there's a cost for it or not. My concern is with Gallery Walk, in that, and my only concern with that would be there are certain gallery walks that are bigger than others. And take the gallery walk of Strolling of the Heifers, and one of the things that I would hope that the board would look at is the number of permits that may occur at any one gallery walk. I don't think we're going to be overrun with permit requests for this. I'm not of that opinion. However, I think there could be times when you might be, and my concern with that is when people are drinking in an establishment, they don't typically go from have one drink here, another drink here, another drink here, and do kind of the bar hopping as much. You have bartenders who are able to, they kind of know how much they've served someone. If you have an event like a gallery walk where the whole intention is to go from one place to another, and no one is then responsible for kind of keeping an eye on the person who may have overindulged. That doesn't mean that you need a blanket, that of no. It just means that I think that in your rules of conduct, you might want to. I don't even necessarily think you need to specify a number. I think you could just put it in there that you could limit the number of permits given on any single night in a specific area. That would be the only concern that I would have, because that is a difference between someone who's trained and their establishment serves liquor and someone whose primary task is working at a bookstore.
Further comments from anyone on the board at this point? Kate?
I just sort of want to echo, I think, what John just said. We're having the debate now on this, but if we do this and allow galleries and bookstores, I can just imagine us having the debate on, well, are you, somebody comes before us and we're having that, are you a gallery or a bookstore debate? So, I tend to lean towards where Ken is. If people can get something through a special event or catering permit, I think it would, just making a definition, I think is how do you get over that hurdle?
I would just rather have them get a catering permit.
Which, I guess that is what I wanted to say. I think the restrictions that we would end up putting on place would essentially be us saying, yes, you can get a gallery or bookstore permit. You need to do it by getting a catering permit.
Get a catering. We're promoting more business.
Right.
Other comments from the select board? Anybody who's in attendance? Beth, do you want to speak?
Hi, I'm Beth Schrader. I'm the director of the Brattleboro Area Prevention College. Welcome to all of you. It's really nice to see you up there. Really looking forward to working with you. Annette and Ken both contacted me when this came up in February to provide some technical assistance. And that's what BAPC does. We provide technical assistance for you and other select boards around issues about drugs and alcohol and how it affects you. One of the things that we'd like to do is invite all of Windham County liquor commissioners to a specialized training, which we're arranging with the DLC in sometime at the end of April, beginning of May. So you'll all be invited to that. Because you're not the only ones who are looking at these issues. So don't feel alone as far as that goes. One of the things that when Annette and Ken asked me to look into this, my staff and I did look into it. And I want to clarify one thing. This permit does not allow you to sell alcohol. According to the Act, which whatever the name of it is, authorizes permits to serve malt and Venus beverages, not sell. So I just want to clarify that. The other piece that I wanted to mention, and I have a hand up for the select board if they decide to pursue the permit idea, is that I checked with Richard's Group Insurance about the liability of a small business whose regular business is not to serve alcohol or sell alcohol. And there's not an endorsement on your small business liability insurance that would cover serving alcohol. So if you are a small business, if Dave Scholl's LLC decided they wanted to do it, they would not be covered under their current liability insurance. They would need a special endorsement to cover that. So just so you know, Dave Scholl's Scholl, sorry, would not be able to do that with a valid insurance certificate. So that's a piece I wanted to mention as well. And if the select board does decide that they want to pursue this in another manner, BAPC and our members and our staff are more than willing to help you in any technical assistance way possible. And I hope that in the future, if you have any questions, or as you guys have a lot of power as liquor commissioners, it's a very, very powerful role in this community. And I hope that the Department of Liquor Control and BAPC can be resources to all of you. As we have in the past, we've had a really good working relationship with the board, and we want to continue that. So just those are some issues to consider.
Anybody from the board have any questions for Ms. Schrader?
Well, I don't know if it's for Ms. Schrader or not, but I thought in the state of Vermont you couldn't give away beer or any kind of alcohol. I thought you always had to charge.
They give beer, they give wine away at the co-op, so.
Mr. Van Slyden.
It's a different permit. But we're not involved.
James Van Slyden, District 2. I guess I'm a problem solver. I try to make everybody happy. I'm worried about the blood alcohol content. The permit says you can serve wine, but if you read about the BAC contents, they often say you should dilute every other drink with water, a glass of water, or food, or whatever. Now, I understand it's a 6-hour permit. Is it possible that we could put restrictions of maybe a person could only have like 2 or 3 drinks, or possibly going from a 6-hour to a 3-hour, or maybe even a 2-hour window, where the kids can come into the gallery in the morning, and maybe last 3 or 2 hours the adults can have some real fun. You know, take the kids back home, drop them off with the babysitter, come back to the gallery, and have something to drink. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And enjoy your Brattleboro, Vermont.
Did you want to comment in the back there? Did you want to or not? You're all set? Anybody else who's attendance who wants?
He did.
It's fine. All right. Anybody else who's in attendance want to speak to this item? Anybody else from the select board? Did you have a question over there? You're all set?
Well, maybe just to help David, the one thing, I'm not sure on this, but when you apply for a special permit, if you're going to serve, you have to hire a caterer. So that's the difference. So if you have a book gallery, it's going to cost you a little more.
Right.
That's
So, not hearing any further discussion at this point, as far as I can tell, does somebody on the board want to make a motion? Are we ready for a motion? Do we want to have further discussion about this at another meeting? What's the board's pleasure? If we do nothing, the moratorium that was adopted 2 months ago will not be in place tomorrow. So, although I'm opposed, I'll point that out.
Well, there's only 2 of you that have been involved in this.
Well,
So,
if you're not ready to vote, we can extend the moratorium.
Well, I guess I have a suggestion. We have some choices that were here in the administrative report, and one of them is to decide not to approve any permits until the state defines gallery and bookstore. And I guess I would move that we adopt that recommendation.
All right. So we have a motion that Town of Brattleboro Liquor Commissioners will not grant gallery permits until the state or Department of Liquor Control define what is a gallery.
And a bookstore.
And a bookstore.
Can I ask you a question about that?
All right, that's a motion. Yeah, go ahead.
I think you have to have a second.
No seconds here.
seconds.
We don't
No seconds.
Streamline. No seconds.
And I don't mean to get technical, but if we do that, if we say that, what if we don't like are we opening ourselves up to not liking the definition? Can we come back and look at it? Because I don't necessarily, I just want to make sure we can.
I think this would limit permits until there's a definition, and if there's a definition, then the board can vote what it wants to do later.
Okay.
And knowing the state of Vermont,
They're
it'll
never
take
going to
about
be
30
in
years.
Never going to
They
happen.
define.
So,
Unless they put it on an academic development bill and then.
That's right.
is there any further discussion from the board about this motion?
Because my alternative would have been, and we can talk about that too, because it is on the books, and I want to be clear, I mean, it's obviously on the books that you can get such a permit. Another option, I'm not sure if I'm seeing this in the report, would be under art gallery or bookstore permit, our criteria are that you obtain, I mean, I think I was being a little bit facetious before, now I'm not, that you obtain a caterer's license. And then it just holds us to, it keeps the possibility of such a permit, but it establishes the standards that we've already discussed as a board. I don't know if that's possible, though.
Right. I would respond by saying, and maybe this gentleman over here can answer the question in a minute as well. My understanding is that certain businesses are licensed with caterer's license, and you have to hire them to come in and serve alcohol at your special function. So Tristan's business got a license to be a caterer, and if there was a intent to serve alcohol at a special function, you could hire Tristan's business to come in. And so I don't know that what you're suggesting is
I didn't mean for the establishment
feasible.
to get a caterer's license, but to hire a caterer.
That's different.
I kind of agree with Ken on that, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to
In the
blanket.
back there, then. Please identify yourself.
Josh Hearn, and I'm a Rockingham resident. I'm a little hesitant to even come up and speak because I'm coming up on your agenda. But talking about catering permits, as of 2012, the state of Vermont, and I've got 20 years in the bar industry. State of Vermont has just allowed it, so you don't have to hold before you had to own an establishment, you either had to be a restaurant or bar, hold a first-class license in order to go out and obtain a catering permit. And as of 2012, you no longer have to do that. So that's
Right.
also an option for these galleries or bookstores that are looking to do that. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Mr.
And I think that's what Ken is, that's kind of your proposal. I mean, I don't want to
I'm fine
blanket.
with what's on the table.
Yeah.
But they can do it.
Mr.
And they can
Brooks?
do that now.
We don't have to motion.
That's right. Okay. Okay, good.
Stephen K. Brooks, Brattleboro. I didn't hear anything from anybody from a bookstore or an art gallery here. Are they clamoring for this, or do they not even care? Do you know that there's actually any desire for this, or are we debating about something that they don't want?
Yeah.
There've been
There have been inquiries.
Yeah,
And that,
yeah. I was just going to say, there have been inquiries, but no application has come forward.
is there any further discussion from the board or anybody who's in attendance? All right, so we have motion on the floor to not award any gallery or bookstore liquor licenses until the Department of Liquor and Control of the State of Vermont define what is a gallery or bookstore. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nay. Anybody abstaining? That carries 4-1. Next item on the agenda is the second-class liquor and tobacco license renewal for the 7-Eleven. Barb, could you speak to that, please?
Sure. I don't believe the owner is here because this is a renewal. This is the last of the annual renewals for liquor and tobacco license. It's a second-class liquor license. Just so the board is aware, under your rules of conduct, there are several things that is required. They have to be, and within our ordinances, they have to be up to date on all bills owed to the town. They have to have a valid business license. They have to be current on property taxes, personal property, loan payments, etc. They also then are reviewed by the police chief, who then reports if there have been any violations or notices that have gone to them. What we have done, and this is kind of the first time to show it to you, we've now put that on the actual form that you're going to sign, so that it's in one place for you to see. So with this one, you'll see that they are up to date on all of their licenses and taxes, and they're in good standing with the Brattleboro Police. And because there's nothing else listed there, that means that they did not receive any notices from the police department, or anything from the state of Vermont. So not seeing anything there, along with a good standing statement, means that it's good. So we're just trying to make it a little more condensed for you.
Any questions from the select board? Any comments from any members of the select board?
One question.
Dave.
On one that's going to come up a little later in the agenda, it talks about the person seeking the permit being here for this process, and this person's not here?
The renewals, the board does not require people for renewals to come forward. They can ask, they can make a special request for a renewal to come.
Any further questions or comments from the board? I would note that 7-Eleven changed hands about 4 months ago, and the new owner, I think, came in
Did come in.
3 or 4 months ago when they took the new permit out. Anybody in attendance want to speak to this liquor and tobacco license renewal application? Hearing none. All those in favor, well, I think we need a motion. I'm sorry. Do we have a motion?
I never make these.
Oh, I move to approve the second-class liquor license and tobacco license for the 7-Eleven located at 1020 Western Avenue.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next matter on the agenda is the application of Barnaby's Productions, Inc., first-class liquor and entertainment license. I expect that's Mr. Hearn. You want to come up here?
For people at home, this is the establishment at 95 Main Street. It had been the Rocky Top.
If you'd like to tell us a little bit about your business and your liquor license application.
Sure. First off, Josh Hearn. I've been in the industry for 20-plus years, about 21 years now. I own currently a company, Barnaby's Productions Incorporated. We do music festivals, we do promotion, production, lighting, event security. I've been managing bars the last 10-ish years. Decided it was time to come down and do something positive down this way. A friend of mine was getting rid of his business, so I'm in the process of purchasing what is the Rocky Top Tavern. Allowed him to rename it Barnaby's in the interim. We've kind of done, I like to reference it, kind of like the show Bar Rescue, where we come in, clean the place up, reface it, rename it, relaunch it, give it a new direction, which I think we've done. Tomorrow will be 3 weeks since we reopened the doors as Barnaby's. I'd say we'd had about a 90% turnover in clientele. Definitely a totally different group of people coming in there. Our main focus is to become a true dedicated music hall, much in the way the Iron Horse is to Northampton. Our intent is to, at this point, bring music and entertainment to Brattleboro downtown 5 days a week. We're looking Wednesdays, we're currently doing open mic. Thursdays we are bringing in, at this point we've kind of done some electronic music stuff, which I think we're going to revolve back to live music. Friday local music. Saturdays we're going to bring in regional or smaller national acts. And Sundays at this point we're kind of moving forward with folk, jazz, comedy, that type of thing for early afternoon shows. Basically giving reasons for people to come downtown Brattleboro, get down here a little bit early, see a good show, go out to dinner, kind of make your rounds, and hopefully be a positive improvement for downtown Brattleboro.
There were some questions that we received. I don't know if the board members heard about these or not. When the Barnaby's sign went up, there were some questions about whether or not they were operating without a license. Bill Nanch did go in and checked, and they were working under the license of the Rocky Top. And just so people know, Bill came back to report how just impressed he was with your operation and how well you were doing things. And so I just want to put that out there more so that people understand that you came in and you've been recognized by Bill and by the town clerk's office as doing really great jobs there.
Anybody else from the board?
I just have just a question of interest. How many people, what's your capacity?
Our capacity there is 100 people.
Doesn't take much to fill that up.
It doesn't. We've come close a couple times so far, and hopefully we'll do that a lot more in the future.
You can get more than 100 people.
If you can get somebody to sign off on that, yes, I'll take more than that.
So, my only question was was he operating legally?
Yes.
Then he was.
Yes, Bill
Okay.
Nanch was, and
Okay.
it was done, and that's not an easy thing
I
to
know.
do, to work under somebody else's license,
Right.
and that's why it's
We've technically come in and become employees of Casino Enterprises Limited, much in the way, I go back to the reference of the show Bar Rescue, much in the same way. When they come in, they relaunch, they rename, they kind of take over the facility, and as a way for us to get ourselves in the neighborhood, get people used to us, get known, and move into the transition to May 1 when we make the purchase, to hopefully have a nice seamless transition and move forward.
Ken?
So how does this work? Does the Rocky Top license just...
Yes.
This just
Once it's
overrides
dissolved, it's
the-
done,
okay.
yes. One location can only have really one license, one type of license.
Is there any further discussion from anybody on the select board? I guess I'll inquire, you're familiar with the requirements in the ordinance, and you've got that policy in place and the training's in place?
Absolutely.
All right.
In fact, when I went through and printed it off, I read through it, and initially when I had spoke to Bill Nance, I said, well, I'll read through it. I'm sure I'll make some changes and things, areas I'll probably want to tighten things up. And to be honest, I don't think there's anywhere you could tighten it up. They've done a marvelous job putting it together.
Is there anybody in attendance who wants to speak to this liquor license application? I've never seen those lights on. Do you know how those lights went on?
I think Tad hit them.
Thank you, that's way better.
It makes you sweat though, doesn't it?
Passive
Made me nervous anyway.
I thought it was something new.
You know, I thought there were more lights on, and I didn't know why.
He becomes chair and he wants new lights.
You know,
Sorry when you're on the other side of those
I
lights.
guess that's right.
Dick never wanted them.
No further, Beth.
I don't understand, if you could explain this to me, maybe Josh, you have more experience. Last week, or last select board meeting, there was a renewal of all existing liquor licenses. And Chief Rinn specifically said at that time that the Rocky Top was closed and that we didn't need to renew that license. So can you clarify, David, can you clarify what that was?
I believe that we received the first round of existing liquor and tobacco licenses for renewal, and the renewal date is like April
30th.
April 30th. And so we had like 60 or 70 2 weeks ago. We voted to approve all those. The only ones that didn't come in of existing license holders were 7-Eleven and Rocky Top. And now Barnaby's is coming in looking for the license for that location.
So maybe the language, I don't know, we might want to go back to the minutes and see what Chief Rinn said. Because that, and again, I don't have access to the minutes because I only read it on iBrattleboro. Thanks to Chris and Lise for putting it on iBrattleboro. Just because, to me, I got a call from one of our coalition members who said, it says Rocky Top's closed on iBrattleboro. So I don't know what's in the minutes, but you might want to just, it said, I think Chief Rinn said something about it being closed. So anyway.
Excellent.
I don't think he was at the meeting. I don't remember, but I think it would have been that it was said that it was not renewing its license.
Okay. Yeah, I just it
was
again, that might be
closing.
iBrattleboro's interpretation.
Yeah.
But I just, which is, God love them for doing all that. I really appreciate them for doing
Yep.
it. But yeah, I don't know. So that was just one thing.
Yeah, because the chief wasn't at the meeting. So.
Okay. I think that somebody said that Chief Rinn said there wasn't a problem because they were closed. Okay. So just.
Any further comments? Do we have a motion?
To approve.
Yeah, please.
To approve a first-class liquor license and tobacco license for Barnaby's Production, Inc. at 95 Main Street.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. Good luck.
Thank you very much,
Welcome.
and off to my own select board meeting.
Yeah.
Trouble for.
Next item on the agenda is an application for first-class liquor license for Elliott Street Fish, Chips, and More.
Yes. And David Manning is here. This is a new liquor license, again, for the establishment that is currently the world's most delicious fish and chips.
So you have the mic and the camera, and tell us about your business.
Well, much like World's Most Delicious was, although they're no longer operating, it's a small fish and chips eatery, although we're expanding our line to include other foods like falafel and hopefully grass-fed hamburgers soon. And it's not a bar. It's a 15-seat restaurant, and I'm probably not going to make any money selling liquor when you actually get the fees and stuff. It's more of a service to the clientele that would like a beer with their fried fish.
Select Board have any questions or comments? And you've seen the policy and you're compliant with it?
Yeah, I completed the training 2 weeks ago. It was actually hilarious. Like, it was obviously written like by Vermonters for Vermonters because the examples in it were relevant, and it like read like an actual person wrote it, not a robot. But yeah, we're going to maintain all the compliance and.
Excellent.
I've never heard it described that way.
Well, good luck to you. Is there anybody who's in attendance or from the Select Board who wants to speak to this? Then we're ready for a motion.
You all set? To approve a first-class liquor license for Elliott Street Fish Chips and More at 48 Elliott Street.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
We ready for a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners?
I move to adjourn as liquor commissioners.
Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning as liquor commissioners, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. The next matter on the agenda is to convene as water and sewer commissioners. Do we have a motion?
I move to convene as water and sewer commissioners.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. The first item on the Water and Sewer Commissioners' agenda is an update on the wastewater treatment plant.
Hannah O'Connell, who is our Assistant Public Works Director, is here with Rick Ethier. Just as a note to the board, typically the monthly report from Hoyle Tanner is at the second meeting. This is coming before you for the purpose of the change orders. And again, before I turn it over to those folks to explain the change orders or the project changes, just to explain the process, you get project changes will come before the body. If they're over $5,000, they need the approval of the select board. Under $5,000, the Public Works Director has been given the authority to authorize those. And what happens when there's a project change, at some point the project changes culminate to an actual change order. They kind of you may have a change order that has just a couple things, or they may wait for a period of time and get a change order that has many things. And so that's the reason that you are approving the project changes and then authorizing me to sign subsequent change orders. If you didn't have that authorization if you didn't give me the authorization to sign subsequent change orders, you would be approving project changes, and then those changes would be coming back to you as a change order to be approved. So, and that is the way that it has been done. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's just the way it's been done.
Rick and Hannah.
I think some of you were down at the ribbon cutting a little while ago. I know John was there.
Paper cutting.
The paper cutting. It was eco-friendly.
Yes.
Things are pretty well. The big stuff that you notice is done. They're doing a lot of paint, a lot of control work, a lot of electrical work, that kind of thing. For the yesterday and one day last week, myself, Hoyle Tanner engineers, Bruce, and representatives from PC went around doing punch lists, and we've done all but 2 of the buildings that they're still doing quite a bit of work in. And I think that punch list at one time was 800 items, and we've pared it down considerably, but that's where we're at. Lane was in there today looking around. As soon as the weather gets better, they're going to finish up. They've got a crew scheduled to finish up the lawn as soon as that starts to get warm enough to do that. So things are gradually winding down, and so far all the stuff is online, running well, except the second digester biology, and that isn't up and running yet. The other thing is we've received in excess of 10,000 gallons of septic so far, probably 15 or 20, I'm not sure, 4 or 5 loads. And they're loads anywhere from 3 to 5,000, so it's working.
That's a good thing.
And
yes,
so the
is.
board knows people pay to dump their septic, so that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Cha-ching.
Are there any change orders to be discussed?
Well, these were all change orders that Steve has approved. They were all, one of them actually you do have to approve.
Yep, no, I see.
And that's the deletion of the trench grading in the pump gallery of the Headworks building. Now, that's a $9,000 credit, I believe. $9,385. So you have to approve that because it's over $5,000. Historically, we never had too much trouble approving big credits. The schedule so far is they're keeping track of time. They should still be looking at their completion dates for the process to be up and running. IDI, who is the subcontractor who is in charge of that, kind of is running that show. They supplied the process, the organic thing, and they're calling the shots on that. And as you're well aware, if things get out of hand and run too long, we have the liquidated damages, and then we're all trying to avoid that. And I think what else we had for change orders. Those other change orders are for the Spring Tree pump station. That's a part of the project, but kind of separate. Those people have been in there doing a lot of preliminary work. They've changed some piping. They got the old in-the-ground tank out. They've ordered a bunch of parts and pieces that are on site. They've been in touch with Green Mountain Power about bringing the power service to the place. And some of the change orders there, one of them that jump out at you is the SCADA upgrades, an $8,500 increase. The projected cost was $8,500 lower, and we checked several vendors to see if we could get closer, and that's a real number. That's what it's going to cost. But to make it a little more palatable, we have several credits. We have a credit for elimination of having a construction trailer on site, computer, et cetera, and so on that goes with it. They didn't need to put as much erosion control silt fence in because they got a lot of work done last fall, groundwork. And elimination of having a sign there. We couldn't see a point. If it was down there, nobody's going to see it. If it's on Route 5, they're not going to know what it's for. So between all of them, with the credits, it brought us down to $2,700 increase.
Would you
with that
explain
project.
what the SCADA system is?
SCADA is, yeah.
Supervisory control and data acquisition.
So basically, Steve can sit in the office and punch it up on the computer and see, or Hannah can. Pump 1 is running, pump 2 is running, we got an alarm, whatever's going on up there.
Both the water system and the wastewater system are operated by computer, essentially. And any alarms, any levels that go out of kind of get out of the normal ranges. There are alerts that go on, and you can actually watch the system through your system. It's facilitated a reduction in some hours with staff because it had been that staff would have to be actually working at the plants on the weekend. Now they have a laptop that they take home with them, and they can monitor, and then they can see if something's happening at the plants. If you have the opportunity to go down to the wastewater treatment plant, I would really encourage you to. It is actually pretty interesting, particularly that system, because it feels like you could just touch the screen and change the whole system, but you can't.
You can.
But don't.
She
Another
says
thing
she
that-
can. You said you can.
They told me.
They told her not to touch it.
And I would also like to add that the change order for SCADA is also an additional 14 contract days.
Right, can you explain that, why it's going to take 2 weeks longer?
That's for the SCADA outfit. No, I'm sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. You've been at meetings, go ahead.
There's some concern that the two local companies, local to, what are they, New England?
Yeah, one's New Hampshire.
They're very
and one's
limited
Vermont.
that install the SCADA system, and sometimes it's difficult to coordinate with them. And
The problem Shaban had with it is if he can't say, look, I'm ready for you to come hook up your wires, that will hold everything else up. we thought at one point we could do everything we needed to do, and if they didn't get there, that's fine, they can come back at some other time and do that, but it's a part of, it has to be in series. If they don't get their work done, it stops everything else. So Shaban was very concerned that these people are notorious for getting there when they feel like it. And it seems to be a thing with these.
So
They're
they may
so
not
busy.
need those 14 days.
They may not. They're just trying to cover themselves.
Right.
Is there a risk that the extra 14 days are going to add cost to the project? I know we had concerns about that with the main part of the project down at the wastewater treatment facility.
I don't think so on this. This just isn't that big.
We have written this so that there are two separate motions, and that is just for the ability to, the change order numbers change with the spring tree, because they have been working at that as a separate kind of contract.
Is there any further discussion or inquiries from the board about these two separate sets of
I'd
change
just
orders?
like to
Sean?
know if we don't approve the decrease, what happens?
We'll have them go ahead and do it.
You
They'll
get
go
the
ahead and do
They
it.
flush the money.
I just like that. We have to approve a decrease.
Is there any other comments? All right, then I guess we're ready for the motion on the wastewater treatment facility upgrade.
I move to approve the project change to the wastewater treatment facility upgrade project in the amount of a credit of $5,294, and to authorize the town manager to sign any subsequent change orders.
Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. Now we're ready for the next motion.
I further move to approve the project change to the spring tree pump station project in the amount of $8,500 and 14 additional contract days, and to authorize the town manager to sign any subsequent change orders.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? That also carries 5-0. We're ready for a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
So,
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you for coming.
Good job, Hannah.
Excellent. The next matter on the agenda is under new business, appointment of the Police Fire Committee. So by way of overview, between 5 and 6 o'clock this evening, we interviewed a dozen people, I think, 11 people, who had expressed interest in serving on the Police Fire Committee. And although the previous board in February had adopted a size of the committee and a general mission statement or charge for that committee, I want to make sure that before we take the nominations and vote on committee members, that everybody on this board is comfortable with the plans for how that committee is going to be constituted before we vote to put members on that committee. There also may have been some general inquiries. I know people had some concerns and questions were asked during the interviews about people who had put in their expressed interest beyond the deadline, and there were some questions expressed about, or issues expressed about, what people's priorities were. So I think it'd be good to hear from members of the board with your views about this committee. So, Katie, you ready?
Yeah, my question is not about the people, it's more about the process. And there are, I guess, 5 applications that came in after the advertised deadline. And that concerns me because we did have a deadline. And I worry about it setting precedent in the future for us setting a deadline for anything and then extending it, but not telling people we're extending it. And there have been a lot of issues in the town, and I won't say what they are because everybody knows, that the process becomes an issue. And I just would hate to see that happen in this case. You know, it's not, and again, it's not just this case, it's what happens with anything, whether it's an RFP, whether it's another vacancy for a board. You know, when we set a deadline, you know, I think we set a deadline. And it's actually in the rules of conduct of of filling vacancies, that people get a letter to us by the deadline. And again, it's not a reflection of the people. To me, it's more of a process concern that I have.
Other members of the board? You don't have to comment if you don't want. I'm just making sure.
I don't disagree with that, and I think, as people know, I would be the last person to speak against process and established process, because that's my thing. The only little nugget that I would throw into the mix, and not to dispute anything that Kate just said, is that there is some element that the landscape changed a little bit after town meeting, and that the deadline was before town meeting. The deadline was before town meeting. Just checking, and then we had a town meeting, and I'm not, again, I'm really not putting that out there to speak against deadlines. That's the only piece that's kind of niggling in my head a bit.
Well, I think that, you know, that being said, that, again, it's the process, and it's just maybe a general knowledge that everyone is still on the same page, so that, you know, somebody doesn't get blindsided, or
Absolutely.
that, you know, all of a sudden, here's a change, and what if, that can carry on to a lot of different things if we're not all on the same page. So I kind of agree with Kate on the process. Yeah.
Dave?
Well, I agree about the process as well. Another aspect of it is that the people, how do you tell somebody who did everything right, applied on time, and filled out all the information, that selected somebody that didn't do that? On the other hand, one of the reasons that people get elected to make these kinds of decisions is because we have brains, and we're reasonable and thoughtful, and we recognize when things, that the right thing isn't always the process, or isn't always clearly defined. And I think I came in here feeling exactly as you just stated. But after hearing some of the people that applied late, and having the information that wasn't on the paper, there are some candidates there that I think would be really strong and would help the work that needs to go forward. So I think for that reason, I'd like to consider them, even if it is outside the process.
Kate, did you speak again?
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I sort of disagree. If I can do both.
Yes, you can.
If the way I understand it, and Barb can correct me, or David or Ken can correct me if I'm wrong, that the deadline was extended once. Is that correct or not? Okay. And what concerns me about this time is, I'm assuming the second time it was extended, it was advertised as being extended, or somebody knew it was extended.
Yes.
And I sort of feel that unless we're going to formally extend it,
Right.
Again, there could be people out there that are watching right now saying, shoot, I wish I had known. I mean, that's just my concern, and it sort of sets the precedent. Do we extend the deadline, or...
Okay.
And to be clear, the meetings of the Police Fire Station Oversight Committee will be open, warned meetings,
Yes.
so that any of the people who applied late can certainly go and participate in the meetings.
Did you want to speak, John?
Yeah, and it certainly, and Kate already said this, it certainly doesn't diminish the people that came in. We're not focused on the people that applied. It's just the process. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll speak briefly. I felt that the discussion at the town meeting on the 23rd was a very productive public airing of concerns, both for and against the police fire as currently proposed. I thought that the roll call vote at town meeting was just an excellent exercise in democracy. I've never participated in anything quite like that before, and I really feel quite lucky to have participated in it, because I've never done that before. I came out of that meeting believing that it was important to have people who were opposed to the project or to the scope of the project or the cost of the project, and who had voted to strip the bond money out of the budget, represented on the committee, because I think there's a significant group of people in town who feel that way, and I think that the only real way to ensure as broad buy-in as possible, and in order to make sure that lingering questions about the scope and cost of the project, to make sure that those are answered, the best way was to have people who voted against the project, essentially by voting to strip the interest out of the bond, out of the budget. And so I personally contacted some of these people who had voted against it, who I respect, and I said, would you put your name in? And I didn't contact one of them who put his name in, but I contacted the others, and they put their names in, and I think it would be a very useful and very welcome composition of the committee to have people who voted against it and who were there particularly to question the costs as they're presented. But just because I nominate them doesn't mean they're going to get voted in if you vote against them because of the deadline, unless you're voting, unless you're, I mean, you could file a motion, you could make a motion to say we're not going to consider anybody who put their name in after the deadline, and that would address the issue. Otherwise, I expect that they can be considered like anybody else, and that's really a procedural question. How do you want to deal with it?
Kate?
It's really up to you, Kate. If you want to make that motion, it certainly can be considered, and the board can vote on it.
You know, I guess I'm in a quandary on what to do about it, because it's, you know, in some ways, it's almost a bigger discussion if we're talking about precedent setting. And I don't know if we want to like get into a huge discussion on process that not only involves this vote, but not, you know, in this case, but everything. I mean, that's sort of where I am, and I just don't know, you know, where we want to go.
At the risk of jumping back in when I said I try to not talk so much, I think this inquiry is different from RFPs because that's a specific bid process and people expend funds and are looking to have contracts awarded as a result of that process. What we're talking about is service on a volunteer committee. There's really just service to the town with people putting in their expressions of interest. And so I view it differently that way, but I understand your concern.
Yeah, and we're going to have, I don't mean to talk about this, Ken, but we're going to have a select board seat open. And, you know, it's almost, to me, we're about to deal with something like that. And to me, this sort of, we have to keep that in mind when what we're doing here from precedent-wise.
I just think that because we've opened this up a little bit, and because of warned meetings and all this, you know, the stuff and just disclosure, that it's nice to get this out in the open and to at least address, you know, a problem that could arise down the road, and you know, and just get it out there.
And what I'm going to say is, if somebody wants to make a motion saying people who put in their names after the deadline shouldn't be considered, we'll vote on that because that's the way the process works. Otherwise, you know, we'll just take nominations.
Dead.
Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Anybody else from the board? Anybody who's in attendance want to speak to this issue? Mr. K. Brooks?
After hearing what David Gartenstein said, the explanation, I think there are extenuating circumstances. I don't think it's quite the same as having a deadline to apply for a vacant select board seat, and in the absence of anything else, somebody applies late. It wouldn't be a precedent, because I think David had a very sound reason here, and he couldn't have known who had voted how about stripping the interest from the budget until after the meeting. This has been a very controversial issue, and when you have a controversial issue, whether your side prevails or the other the other point of view prevails. If you feel that there was a fair process, it's much more emotionally easier for people to accept it. And I think it's real, I mean, considering how much divisiveness we've seen in Brattleboro, I think it is really essential that the primary interest here is to end up with some sense of cohesion.
Mhm.
And that's why I think that this is a special case. Thank you.
Mr. Wilmington?
Thank you, John Wilmerding, 3rd District. At representative town meeting, I was feeling called to speak about the police fire bond and encourage people that the cost could be mitigated through the oversight process. And I wanted to check a point of fact, and so I approached Barbara at the table and asked her, I can still say that people can volunteer for that committee, can't I? And your response was yes, as I recall. So
It may have been.
I-
Yeah, because
I-
I wasn't aware of the close date, so it's quite possible.
yeah, so I just wanted to say that I did speak to that issue from the floor and did say people can still sign up for the Police Fire Oversight Committee and can have an effect upon the cost of the project in that manner. And I thought I was speaking from authority, so there would be that mitigating circumstance as well.
It could have been in the 12th hour, so.
Nobody was. I didn't know either. Is there any further comment? Howard?
Just some clarification, in the agenda packet, it said 17 apps came in?
Yes. 2 people withdrew.
But then you only...
They're in the packet. The names are in the packet. And then one person was unable to make it for an interview, and there were 8.
I count
10,
18.
8, 12. 15 people were interviewed.
Oh, 15, okay. And those 15 include the 5 who put in their app?
That's right.
And when you vote, is it possible to tell us who are the link people?
It's in the packet.
It's right in the
Oh, it
packet
is?
here.
Okay,
It's
good.
in your packet.
Okay, thank you.
So, I guess I'll ask first, are there any motions? So if there's no motions, then the way we're going to proceed with this,
Can I just ask one question?
any further discussion?
Well, first, I just want to say that it was great to interview all the people. And anyone who was in here for the interviews will know that I think every single person had a concern about the cost. So it was a general consensus, but I don't think anybody said they weren't concerned. But I would just like to know, I looked up in the minutes for the meeting where this was first discussed, and it would be helpful to me just to be on the same page with everybody on what we're looking for. And it says the mission of the committee is to provide financial and technical oversight to the police fire renovation and addition project. I mean, I just want to make sure that's what the mission is of the board, for the oversight.
Yeah, I just looked it up too.
Okay.
My perspective, and John is probably best situated to speak about this because he's just finishing up a lot of time helping out on the wastewater oversight committee, but my view is that the committee is going to work closely with the project manager, with the administration, department heads, in order to get the project to, through design, specific design, to the bid process, review the bids, and then oversee construction.
Yeah, and and I was on the original committee to find the committee in 2008, right? I think it was.
Probably.
Yeah.
7 or 8.
And I think that's what you have to look for. You have to look for a really round, a good committee that's going to work well together and get all viewpoints in. And I think that's what you have to look for. And it's not that easy in a 5-minute interview, but I think you can get the feeling from the people, and that really helps. I mean, we went through that process, in 2008, and it was very helpful. So.
Is there any further discussion? All right, so the process is going to be that we're going to take all nominations, and so we're just going to take from select board members one at a time. nominations. We'll get all the nominations, and then we'll vote through them. So who wants to go first?
I nominate Robin Sweetapple.
Hold on a second. Robin Sweetapple is nominated. Do we have another nomination from somebody who hasn't yet nominated somebody? Chuck Cummings. I'll go next since we're going up the table,
Right on the line.
if that's okay. I nominate Jane Southworth. Kate?
I nominate Dave Emery.
I
John?
nominate Anthony Farnham.
Ken?
Nominate Kathy Dowd.
Dave?
Eli Gould.
Steve Phillips.
How many are we going for?
Well, we're going to get as many nominations as there are,
Oh, okay.
and then we'll vote. And I take it everybody's still for a 7-person committee?
The 7,
Yeah,
right?
that's the plan?
Yep.
Kate?
I nominate John Wilmerding.
John?
I nominate Phil Chapman.
Ken?
I nominate Sally Brunton.
Dave?
I'm done.
I nominate Prudence McKinney. Kate?
I want to nominate Art Greenbaum.
John?
Um,
I can review the nominations as well.
yeah, can we go?
We have Robin Sweetapple.
Yep.
Chuck Cummings. Jane Southworth. Dave Emery. Tony Farnham. Kathy Dowd. Eli Gould. Steve Phillips. John Wilmerding. Phil Chapman. Sally Brunton. Prudence McKinney. Art Greenbaum.
I have one more.
That's all right. We'll go around until we're done.
Go.
I'd like to
No,
nominate.
yeah. John, do you have anybody else?
Nope, I'm good.
Anybody else? Kate?
I want to nominate James Blansleben.
See, I knew you wanted to.
There we go. Anybody else? All right, and so the process for voting, there's not going to be any no votes. We're going to go down the list, and we'll count the votes up, and we'll see where we are after the first round. If there's a tie and there's more than, if there's a tie that leads to more than 7 people, we'll then vote among those. So, Robin Sweetapple, all those in favor? Raise your hands, please. That's 5 in favor. Chuck Cummings, all in favor? 1. Jane Southworth? 2. Dave Emery? 3. Tony Farnham? 3. Kathy Dowd? 3. Eli Gould? 5. Steve Phillips? 3. John Wilmerding? 2. Phil Chapman? 5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No?
No.
All right. That's it.
silly.
We'll count again. How many? 4.
Sorry.
4 for Mr. Chapman.
Got crazy with the hand, didn't you?
Sally Brunton?
I was in the moment.
1. Prudence McKinney? 4. Art Greenbaum? 2. Mr. Van Slaven? 1. All right. So we have 2 people with 5. That's Robin Sweetapple and Eli Gould. And we have 2 people with 4. That's Phil Chapman and Prudence McKinney. And then we have 4 people with 3 votes, that being Dave Emery, Tony Farnham, Kathy Dowd, and Steve Phillips. So we're going to vote now, again in a round, on those people. Your prior votes don't bind you as to them.
I'm sorry, we need 3 more then? We're at 4.
We have 4, we need
Okay.
3 more. And the slate of candidates is Dave Emery, Tony Farnham, Kathy Dowd, and Steve Phillips. Dave Emery, who's in favor? 3. Tony Farnham? 3. Kathy Dowd? 3. Steve Phillips. All right.
Good job, team.
So we're in exactly the same place we were before.
It's just one
We are
committee
one
of eight.
consistent select.
We can go to a committee of 8 if we want. That's not a problem. Or we can keep going in circles.
One more time.
All right.
8 and John, so.
Oh, that's okay.
8 and John is
yeah,
fine.
because I just don't want an odd number committee.
That's fine. 8 and John will be 9.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. Is
Yeah.
the board happy with those
Do you want John
8
to vote?
members?
You can't vote.
I can't vote.
Well, you can,
John can be a
you
voting
can
member.
allow him to vote, it's just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
at this point, he was a select board member was put on as a liaison, but you would want to change that to a member.
Yep.
I think that'd be
Everybody
great.
comfortable with that? We'll take a vote on that as well. All right, so those 4 candidates, Dave Emery, Tony Farnham, Kathy Dowd, and Steve Phillips, all those in favor of those 4 people, please say aye. Aye. All right, so
Very strong.
that's those 4 members, and then all those in favor of having John Allen, well,
Do we need to
is there any
vote to make-
discussion?
The fearless leader.
All right, I want to make sure.
I would discuss.
Is there any discussion among the board about making the select board member, John Allen, a voting member of that committee?
Do we need to vote to make the committee 9?
Well, that's a good idea. We'll do that as well.
Well, we just made it 8
Yeah.
from 7.
Yeah. All right. Is there anybody who's in attendance who wants to speak about the possibility of having the select board representative be a voting member? All right. And then the other issue is there any discussion on the board about making the committee 9 members, including the select board representative? Any discussion from anybody who's in attendance? All right. So then the next motion is who's in favor of constituting the Police Fire Facility Oversight Committee as 9 members, including the Select Board representative? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
All right, so that's 4-1, that carries.
I think it should be 7.
Still willing to be on the committee?
Oh, yeah.
All right. And all those in favor of having the Select Board representative, be a voting member of that committee, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? You can if you want.
Sure.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, so that carries 5-0. So the Police Fire Oversight Committee is Robin Sweetapple, Dave Emery, Tony Farnham, Kathy Dowd, Eli Gould, Steve Phillips, Phil Chapman, Prudence McKinney, and John Allen. And the charges as set out previously.
Great. I'll be in contact with the first meeting, the organizational meeting, to meet the project manager.
I want to once again thank everybody for expressing interest and being willing to serve. We'll look forward to hearing back from you. The next item on the agenda is
Skating rink.
the Nelson Withington Skating Rink. I think Carol's been sitting patiently in the back. Hi, Carol.
Good evening.
Hi.
So I'm here tonight to answer any questions that you may have regarding the rake project, the compressor replacement project. I have given you a fairly lengthy package. I'm sure that you all had at your bedside for reading over the past couple of nights. So with that being said, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
I guess what I'm going to throw out on this agenda item is that the board really needs to make a decision at this point about the process it wants to follow. Town meeting gave us the authority to spend the money, but there were questions about which alternative to follow and about the evaluation of that, of those alternatives. My personal preference, at the risk of jumping in first, is I'd rather see the Parks and Recs Committee look at this first and come back to us after looking at all the options. But, if anybody else on the board wants to speak to it, unless you're ready to vote on it tonight.
No, I was just wondering how much longer that would take. Or have you looked at all the options?
We've looked at all the options. We hired the ID Story to take an analysis and give us, all the options. And look at them and make the recommendation and see what's best for Brattleboro.
Right.
And that's where option 1 is what's best for Brattleboro. to answer your first question, how long would that take? The Recreation Board meets on the 8th of April,
So
which is next Monday.
would giving you any more time change your opinion?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's
No, I wouldn't, it wouldn't change my opinion on what option to recommend.
right.
Right.
Just for quick clarification, you're recommending option 1,
Recommending option.
and the consultant recommended option 3.
Right.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
want to be sure I was clear on that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it is a significant price increase as you go from option 1 to option 3.
Mhm.
There's also savings, but that there's a lot of areas of concern when it comes to that savings, and I'm not sure I can sit here before you and say, we're going to save $35,000 a year.
Right.
I noticed that was, the report said that was questionable. The number was questionable, and I'm wondering why, what's questionable, how?
The areas
why
of
don't we know?
concern that we have regarding the savings, number one, let's just use this, let's use the middle of the winter when we had 2 weeks of very cold weather. And option 3 eliminates any need for a boiler. So if we were to cut out a boiler and we have, 2 weeks of very cold weather, which would be great, the compressors would not have to run as much, nor would we be recouping any heat to heat the building. So we would be at risk of, okay, we'd want to, I want to say superheat the building to 85 degrees in anticipation of that extended cold weather. That's mid-season stuff. Then, once the season's over, we have a lot of events that take place in there. So would be no means for heating the building or domestic hot water for the bathrooms. And to think that you would turn on a 75 horsepower compressor so you can have hot water, that's hard for me to swallow and recommend to you.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, where all of those savings just don't seem as real to us as it is in writing.
As I look at it, and I look at if in fact that was an accurate estimate, or relatively, say within 10% or even 20% of accurate, after 10 years, that would pretty much cover the entire cost of going with this system. And with the option 1, does that style of compressor have the capacity to use the captured heat? Is that included in the $362,000?
That's not included in there, but I have spoken to IB Story, and what we would be doing is putting it's called a de-superheater, that would recoup that heat off, and we could take the heat off to heat for domestic hot water. And one of the biggest things, as I mentioned at town meeting, is the hot water that's needed for the Zamboni, not just in the bathrooms and the snack bar, but the amount of water that we use, 180 gallons every time that Zamboni goes out to resurface.
So how much would that, what you just described, in order to capture that heat, how much would that add to the 362?
I don't have a number for you on that. We're hoping that's going to come in within the 362. But we will be putting it in as an alternate.
Okay. And just one other thing is that I did the math, and maybe this is an unfair question. I did the math, and I think that what you used is like 449 kilovolts or whatever electricity. Does that sound familiar?
That sounds right, yeah.
Okay, just for our energy people, that's almost what you get out of one 500K solar array.
The other thing with the option 3, with option 1 versus option 3 from a financial piece, the users will be able to pay back that $362,000 over that 20-year period at $720,000. I can't sit here and say we will generate enough money to repay that on an annual.
But again, if the savings are within, even within 20%, after 10 years, that would have been covered anyway. So I mean, I'm looking at it as costing the same after 10 years, and I'm really curious about it's a different kind of compressor, and I don't know anything about this, so I'm really asking you, why would the rotary
Reciprocating
compressor as
versus
opposed to reciprocating? I mean, the obvious thing is reciprocating compressors are like internal combustion engines which rattle themselves apart, and the screw one doesn't.
Yeah, there's less maintenance with a screw compressor.
Yeah.
But there's the variable there of the heat, and not, I mean, the savings. You know, a lot of the savings that they anticipate coming from the bleacher heating. And the bleacher heating really, I mean, that is something that people pay for, and it's not something that's running all the time. It's on demand, and if you want heat, you pay for heat. You know, you put $1 in, you get 15 minutes of heat. It's not something, yes, it's not something that's running all the time. And they're anticipating that we're going to have an 85% reduction in our propane, with 5,000 of it coming from the bleacher heating. And it just doesn't run that often. So there's concerns that we have.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, I just think that there's, you know, the difference in price is pretty relevant. And the fact that you've done a lot of studies on this, or at least, you know, with what you had to work with. And I can't see going with a more expensive, especially with the unknowns of not knowing what your return's going to be. You know, if they really had it calculated and they knew exactly what it was going to be, but they're throwing out numbers that I just don't think are realistic.
And these are the manufacturers that are giving out those numbers?
No. Ivy
Story.
Ivy Story is a independent refrigeration consultant,
Yeah.
and they did an analysis of many options that the town could look at. Because when all this happened in January, a lot of these different companies came to us. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this. A lot of different options. And that's when we sat down with Efficiency Vermont and said, you know, okay, how's this making sense? And so we joined together with them to have this analysis done. And that's where the recommendation came. There's like 4 different recommendations. The more you spend, you know, there's, you know, opportunity to recoup savings, but there's some concerns of is that are those savings real?
Anybody else from the board? Has the Energy Committee worked with you and looked through these proposals?
We have, the park supervisor spoke with Paul Cameron on the early onset of this, and we spoke with Chuck from Efficiency Vermont. The Energy Committee we have not spoken with.
Does Efficiency Vermont have a recommendation of which of these to go with?
You know, they certainly would either direction. You know, of course, they understand the 720 is a big nut to crack, and they understand the town's financial. They said if money's not the object, and if money was not the object, I'd be sitting here telling you go with option 3 too. But money is an object, as I heard pretty loud and clear a couple Saturdays ago. And that's why number 1 is the safe option for Brattleboro, as the users will be able to pay for that annual. For free of paying it back. And the other thing I do want to mention on the payback, I have had, as Chuck Cummings stood up and spoke at town meeting, the Vermont Community Foundation, I have had a couple conversations with the Vermont Community Foundation and the Withington Fund about this project. They are going to support this project. I just don't know what that dollar amount will be at this point. I did ask for a pledge or a grant in the amount of $50,000 over 2 years, but I also furthered that discussion with an opportunity for other grant funding within the foundation that would support this type of project. So I've been encouraged to believe that there definitely will be money coming to support this project from the outside source. I just can't tell you tonight it's 10,000 or 50 or 60, but I can, you know, at some meeting I'll be able to stand before you and give you the good news.
More questions or comments from the board? Anybody who's in attendance want to speak to it?
pleasure.
You should go ahead, if you're ready to make a motion, go ahead and make a motion.
I'm going to make it very simple. I move to go with Carol Lalotte's recommendation of $362,000 to, I guess, improve or to fix the skating rink.
Replace the compressor.
Replace the
Fund
resident-
compressor improvements at the Nelson Withington skating rink.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion is that the select board approve Ms. Lott's recommendation for funding improvements at the skating rink in the amount of $362,000. As, I guess I'll supplement that and say as presented in option one. Is there any further discussion? I'm just going to say I'm not ready for that vote. That's okay. I don't have to be ready. If everybody else is ready, that's the way it works. Any further discussion?
What does it
Barb?
mean you're not ready?
I've said it before, I want it reviewed by the Parks and Recs Committee. I'd like to see the Energy Committee look at it more specifically. The information was presented to us about 4 or 6 weeks ago, and it was a recommendation at that time for a $172,000 project. The day before the day of the informational meeting, we were told that the $172,000 wasn't the way to go. It was a $362,000 project, and that we weren't going to put it on the town meeting, or that it was on the town meeting agenda, but that we were going to ask to pass it over. Then a day or two before, a different strategy arose that we were going to ask for authorization to go to the 362 at town meeting, and town meeting members authorized us, I felt after due diligence, to spend that money if we were ready to do it, and I hope to have the committees look at it some more before voting. But if the board's ready, that's what works. Barb?
One more question. The committee is going to look at it some more. Clearly, I mean, you're going to look at what the cost of the electrical is, and you're going to look at what's coming in.
Well, no, this is the...
What we would be doing at this point would be going forward and putting it out to bid, and it will come back to you to, with the bids.
Okay.
Thanks. One other thing I do want to mention that might be helpful is the piece in here from American Refrigeration. The contractors who, the vendor who maintains the facility, American Refrigeration, who is also saying that option one is the best option for Brattleboro.
Thanks.
I guess I would just say I don't disagree with that. I mean, I obviously don't say this in any way to chastise anything that's happened, but this has been a really whiplash item on our agendas. I mean, twice I remember at Academy School leaning back and catching David's eye and saying, "Wait, what?" And then again at town meeting, I know that's just how it happens sometimes, but I certainly don't disagree with and I think as soon as you got the information, you presented the information. It's been a little whiplashy with this, and I think it was unavoidable, but I certainly see how that contributes to where we are right now.
Barb?
I would just like to, if the motion that's on the floor now to do this option, if there's a sense that motion isn't going to pass because people would prefer to go to a committee, it would probably be better for that just to be maybe removed.
Oh, yeah.
And to
Or
go
tabled.
to or tabled or whatever, just because we don't necessarily want it to get voted down and then have to come back to the committee and then have to come back to this body.
That's my first meeting. I don't want to get yelled at.
No.
No, I mean, John, if you're ready...
It's like the three of us are going to do, we're going to go one way, and these guys are
No, I don't think that's what's going on.
No, it's not.
If there are three members of the board who are ready to vote and are ready to vote in favor, that's fine.
Yeah.
And we can proceed that way. If there aren't, we can, withdraw the motion and have it
looked at by the committee in the next 2 weeks, and then bring it back in 2 weeks. Either way.
I am in no way advocating for, to be clear, I am not advocating for the motion to be withdrawn.
And I realize that, but I also, concerns of the board are really important to me. So, I mean, if that's something that I have no problem with, but what I hate to see is that, you can talk and talk and talk about something, and then it goes on, and I really trust, because, and the only reason I'm saying this is because I was on the board for 2 years, so it's not that I'm new to this, so I really trust our department heads, and I figure that's one of their job requirements, is to go through all this. And I know that this was brought on quickly. This was something that happened in January. So it's, it was unfortunate that it happened on the back of something else. So, but so again, I'm not trying to skirt or go around it, but I have no problem with withdrawing that motion. So. If people feel that they need more time, I'd hate to see it get defeated. That's why. So,
what would the more time be? I mean, I'm pretty much where you are. I mean, I have heard all the time I've been involved about the confidence of the department heads and the town employees. So, and Carol answered my questions, and the way I heard what I need to hear, so I'm ready to say, go ahead. But, and what would the coming back process be? What would be gained by doing it through a longer process?
I think I articulated before, my preference is to have Parks and Recs Committee look at it, and to have the Energy Committee look at it, and to hear their recommendation and analysis.
That sounds really good, too.
So that's where we are.
Dang it, I'm not withdrawing.
Right, that's fine, and that's the way to go. Yes. Did John, I saw you raising your hand. Did you want to speak?
No. John Wilmerding, 3rd District. I just wanted to say you could go either way, and it's not unusual to remand something to a committee and come back. Yeah. And it's also in the spirit of, I think, probably the vigilance of the past town meeting that you would have a volunteer from that committee, or that volunteers from that committee come and give a report out to you.
Any further discussion? The motion on the table is to proceed with option 1 as recommended by Director of Parks and Recs, and to fund improvements at this skating rink in the amount of $362,000. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Opposed? That carries 4-1. The next item on the agenda is intercreditor agreement, Shire Town Properties. Town manager or finance director?
This is the board has asked, this would change the position of the board. The board currently has a small business assistance loan with Shire Town Properties. We're currently, I believe, in 4th position of this loan. There's some consolidation of debt that is occurring, and at the end of that, we would be in 2nd position. However, we would be in 2nd position with behind a larger debt. If the debt is still, as the paperwork shows, the debt is still below the value of the property. So with that, the board is asked to, and this has been reviewed by the town attorney, so with that, the board is asked to approve the intercreditor agreement.
It should be noted that the intercreditor agreement was amended 3 or 4 months ago. And we, I think, moved down in priority at that time.
Correct. We moved down, and now we're moving back up.
Is there any questions from the board about the intercreditor agreement? Is there anybody who's in attendance who wants to speak to this item? If there's none, we're ready for motion.
We move to approve an intercreditor agreement that accepts 2nd position lien on 71 GSP Drive for an SBAP loan to Shire Town Properties.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. Next matter on the agenda is to consider and award a bid for seasonal maintenance at Prospect Hill and Morningside Cemetery.
Carol again.
Carol.
God. Vote this one down.
This one's a little more straightforward, I must say.
Cutting grass.
Cutting grass. On March 20th, we had a bid opening for seasonal maintenance of both Prospect Hill and Morningside Cemetery. We received one bid from Turner Renault for $17,800. They are also the company that maintained the facilities last year at the same dollar amount. And I'd like to recommend to you this evening that the bid be awarded to Turner Renault for $17,800 for the maintenance of both Morningside and Prospect Hill Cemetery.
Any questions from members of the Select Board? Anybody who is in attendance want to speak to this item or have any questions?
It's pretty cut and dry.
All right, hearing none, we're ready for a motion.
He has to make a
Okay.
motion now.
You have to make a motion.
Oh, I gotta make it now, because it's cut and dry? Okay. To enter into a contract with Turner Renaud of Dummerson for seasonal maintenance of Prospect Hill Cemetery and Morningside Cemetery for $17,800.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? It carries 4-0. Next matter on the agenda is, thank you, Carol, is the net metering contract. So we'd ask members of the Energy Committee to take the table and talk to us.
While they're coming up, I'm just going to give a little bit of the history. It's
I hope
December
so.
4th, the board approved seeking proposals for a net metering agreement. We did that, and we received 4 proposals. The Energy Committee and I met, or the subcommittee of the Energy Committee and I met, and they're here to talk about what the proposals said and what their recommendation is.
Yep, we got 4 proposals that came.
Tell the people at TV Land your name.
Lester Humphreys, chair of the Energy Committee, and as part of the subcommittee that met and went over the 4 proposals. The 2 biggest factors were the savings to the town, which estimated range between $12,400 and $16,000. You'll see that there's also another number that's for the second 10-year period. So the first number is for the first 10-year period. Second number is for the second 10-year period. That was probably the biggest factor. Another factor was whether or not the town had already obtained land for where the system would go. And from that, we narrowed it down to 2. One company had obtained the land, the other had the highest savings to the town. Comparing those 2, we felt that we couldn't overlook the savings to the town, and we recommend the integrated solar option out of the 4.
Barb?
Lester, would you mind explaining for not necessarily the board, but for the other people, what we asked them for, what we asked the companies for, and what is actually a net metering agreement?
No, you have to explain it to me.
Okay.
I'm telling you,
we've got some new
lost
members
on
here.
this one.
What we asked the board to do a request for proposals for was for a company to, with investors, build a system on a site that they determine to create solar power. All the solar power credits would then go on the town's energy bills, on electric bills. And then we asked these companies, what percentage of those credits do we have to give back, and how much do we get to keep? And so that's what you see here. This is the amount of the credits for the solar power generated that the town gets to keep. If the system does not generates less power or doesn't generate power, there's no risk to the town. We just buy power the way we normally would. But as long as the system is up and running, generating these credits, then we're going to get a discount from what we would normally pay. So what the town is looking at is guaranteed savings. What the companies get out of it is a reliable customer that is going to be around for 20 years and has a good track record in paying its bills.
Right.
That's it. That's great. We were very excited to have 4 companies put in bids and very grateful.
Just the analysis done by the committee or the subcommittee, just so folks know, I don't know if you said this, I apologize. It represents 16,000 to 18,000 of savings in our electric.
Right, right.
More we use, the more we save, that's what I like to say.
There you go.
The more that's generated, the more we save.
Oh.
Yeah.
We save more on sunny days.
Right, right.
Is there any further questions from members of the board?
What you had, yesterday, when I came to your meeting for announcements, and you said you're going to ask for direction going forward. Is that still your intention tonight?
Yeah, I think that's the
Okay.
second item.
Great, thanks.
Can you speak to that first?
Sure. The second question for us was, this system would represent about 20% of 2010's electricity use, about 40% of the total bill for the town. So that leaves open the possibility of doing another system. And so the direction we were looking at, we wanted to get from the board is what's the interest, particularly with new members, and going forward. The options would be looking into another system similar to this, doing another RFP, doing a system that would come in at a fixed rate for electricity, which would be a hedge against increases of electric rates in the future at the expense of higher rates if electric rates were to go down in the future. A third option would be a town owning a system, and then a fourth option would be to leave things alone, see how this goes, and revisit this at a later date. And
Can you explain the difference between the 20 and 40% figures you started with?
Yes. The 20% is the town's kilowatt hour use. The credits are at twice the rate that the town is paying. So the dollar credits will be 40% of the bill for the town, roughly. And we can't go over, and I should add that with the wastewater treatment plant coming online, there's going to be savings there. So our total electric bill is going to go down. So it may be more like 50% of the total electric bill. We can't go over 100% of the electric bill because Green Mountain Power will not pay the town. It can only do credits against electric bills. So that's the real limit, is the dollar amount, not the amount of electricity the town uses.
I understood that if somebody signed up for this, this agreement, and say there was 130,000 kilowatts, I'm not sure the numbers, but
this is a 500 kW system.
500 kW, yeah. So say if, for instance, we did 2, and we had more credits than we used electricity, I understood that you can form a group with, and it may, I don't know if it's different for the town, but I don't think it'd be different from the town and the school board, that you can form a group with anyone in the Green Mountain Power District to purchase or to take those extra credits.
And in effect, that is what this is. The town is being that net metering group. So yes, you can add members to that at any time.
So,
and it's not on a necessarily a month-by-month basis where if you don't use 100% of it this month, you lose it.
You can keep it for a year.
That will actually roll forward.
Right.
And if you carried a credit balance for more than a year, then you would start to lose it. So there's a lot of time to be able to say, wow, we're generating more than we're consuming. Let's tie in the skating rink. Let's tie in, whatever else. And we could even partner with, another business in town. In effect, what we're doing is just buying our electricity from a different source that costs less. but we're agreeing to buy all of it. But at 500 kilowatts, that's not all
Right,
of
that's what.
No,
So, John just asked, and I'm going to ask the same thing. When you first came in front of us 6 months ago, 8 months ago, the question was, what's the risk to the town in this arrangement here?
I don't see a
And
downside.
I'm not hearing any risk to the town in this approach that's being presented to us.
That's correct.
Is there any risk to the town?
No.
If the company goes under,
If the company goes under, they stop generating,
then they stop generating.
and the assets are taken over, let's say in some bankruptcy or something like that, and sold off, the
Right.
panels and whatever the assets are sold off, then the company defaults on the contract, stops, we stop getting the credits.
Right, we just go back to-
And we just go back to Green Mountain Power, and
Well, but-
we lose the discounts.
We lose the discounts, but in a business in which you budget 8 months in advance, if it goes under and you've done your budget and all of a sudden your electric bill goes up by that percentage, it would impact you in that year. We're not as nimble.
It would affect your planning, but what happens is it would go back to where it would be if you do nothing.
All right.
So we just, what happens is we stop saving.
But we budgeted for that.
Right, I'm just saying,
You
it's
know,
not,
and
it's not a catastrophe, but
Right.
it's not like, we're not budgeting as far in advance as we do.
And that is something we did look at when we looked at the companies. We wanted to see
Right.
that they were standing behind the system that they were putting in, and that there were assets at risk, that the investors had assets at risk, and that there wasn't, some sort of a company that was set up with no assets that could then easily default. And that's also something that will be addressed during the contract phase. We've talked to Bob Fisher about that,
Right.
making sure that, assets are at risk.
Other than that, what if? I mean, I don't see a downside to any of this.
Neither
No,
do
we think it's wonderful. I mean, it's solar power, which has advantages for the town as far as advertising, and it's something of interest to people in the town. It's very attractive to young people to know that the town is investing in solar power, and it's saving us money, so it's a win-win.
I'm still waiting for solar panels to get smaller.
They're getting there.
I don't think.
That's why you put them on dump.
The question before the board, and I think what's being proposed tonight, not necessarily as for an answer, is really isn't a downside. There are other ways of doing this in which you could save more money, but you do assume more of a risk.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where the question is for the future, is that we still have, we can do this, we can do more of this. There are 4 ways of doing more of this, which have, some are kind of at a low to no risk, like we're doing right now. We can do that. Or you can do a little higher risk, but maybe have a better return. And I guess my question then for the board would be, would you like that to be on a future agenda where where the committee would come back with a little more detail on those other options and a little more information so that you can just focus on that? I think we were trying to set the stage tonight for the future discussion.
Let's get to that after the motion on this net metering contract. Does anybody have anything further to inquire about or to say about the net metering contract that's being presented from the board? John?
Thank you. I've been the Renewable Energy on the Finance Committee for a couple of years and have been looking into this stuff. I know that my suggestions have not always been welcome, and they haven't always been well thought out. But initially I was concerned about the fact that the town was asking for a discount or stipulating a discount on the purchase of electricity from a renewable source, a provider or installer or investor. I have less concerns about that now. I think that the forces of the marketplace tend to work themselves out, and we are looking at a situation where a company claims a legal monopoly on selling electricity in Vermont. So you have to be careful how you word these contracts, and I would don't think I can emphasize that too much. But if the town sees its way clear to getting discounts on electricity by doing this, I think I'm in favor of that at this point. Another thing is that in early proposals to the town, which did reach the ears of Select Board last year, there was the idea of the town having options to purchase the arrays that were created. And I favor this. I favor not having one option after 20 years. I favor having multiple options, including if the company that owns the array were to go under financially. I think the town should also have an option it could exercise there. Now, understand, I'm not necessarily suggesting that the town purchase and operate solar arrays, but you might want to create a public interest entity that can do that for you. And it could create a new business opportunity in the town. You know, there are certain risks and certain liabilities with running, you know, commercial electric facilities that the town might not want to get into, but other people better qualified might be able to do that. And I believe the town could give or delegate its purchase options to another third-party entity that has not yet even been conceived of, really, in the popular mind. I think you should allow for that, because it might, in the long run, be one of the best answers to the effective monopoly that now exists in Vermont.
Are we ready?
Just one
Yeah.
quick thing. I'm just wondering if the new board members had missed anything in previous meetings that would help us.
Yeah, I really think it was more of a due diligence piece. It was just making sure that we had all the information in front of us. I don't think that.
Well,
I don't remember hearing any doubts
see,
expressed.
yeah.
We just needed to see it bulleted out. So that's really where we were.
Right, the biggest
we didn't
concern
want to be premature.
Right, the biggest concern I remember hearing expressed with the previous board had to do with having a fixed price for electricity and not knowing how the market would fluctuate.
That's right.
And the Energy Committee came back with a proposal that provided for 10 or 15% below market rate, and then I don't see how you can go wrong.
Right.
It was a 15% with the 20 years, and it needed to be signed within a month.
Right.
There was a time, and so it was too long of a contract, too little time.
Sure.
Yeah, Rex James, Region Solar. We were one of the bidders, and I applaud you guys for doing what you're doing. It's a great leadership role in the region in southern Vermont, and so thank you very much. A question to the committee. I know different people proposed dealing with inflation. How much of is your cost and value calculations based on a presumed inflation rate, or how did you deal with inflation rate of utilities in your analysis?
We looked at the percentage of the credit. So if inflation increases prices of electricity, that doesn't, and there's two things that could happen. One is right now the credits are fixed for 10 years, and after that they're based probably on the price of electricity for the second 20 years. And so for the first 10 years it's not really relevant. For the second 10 years, if the price goes up, the credits go up and the percentage the town keeps goes up. Is your question different than that?
People offered suggestions seen at different select board meetings and that projections that electricity will rise at 3%, and so our value of the credit and the value to the town is increasing, in 10 years at a 3% rate. So when you did you levelize all of the bids to a zero inflation or a specific inflation rate to determine
the short
whose calculations?
The short answer is yes. That we did not take into account. We did not just take a company saying, well, electric rates are going to do this, and therefore it's going to look like this. We just looked at today's prices for electricity. We did not look at electric rates, what they might be in the future. And that's one of the things the board sort of gave us in setting this up in this RFP, was that they wanted to see guaranteed savings.
So is inflation
regardless-
free, basically?
Yes. Now,
Okay.
it doesn't mean it won't affect the savings, but it would be the same for all the companies the way we've set it up. You know, so that we can compare them equally.
Can I get a copy of your comparisons?
Sure. We can talk about it afterwards.
I guess we can take one more comment. John? Okay. go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that it does appear a little vacuous to say, well, it doesn't look like there's any downside to this. There are many things that could happen. There could be new kinds of regulations slapped on to large solar arrays. The Green Mountain Power, which claims a legal monopoly on the sale of electricity, could go to court and say, hey, look, the town is in effect trying to share the benefit of all these incentives. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But it is a liquid environment, and I'm all in favor of you guys doing this and sorting the problems out later. I think it's a wonderful initiative, and I think you should build 2 of them, as Jason suggested before, not just one.
Actually, if I could say one more thing.
Please.
I am in favor of adopting 2 of these, although not necessarily just going to the second one. I would suggest that we send out another RFP based on what we've learned, and then the select board can decide if they want to try a slightly different version, a little more risk or not. One of the concerns that I have is that right now the reason this works is largely because of the tax environment, and so investors like these and they're investing in these because they've got a very good return on them. And with what's going on in the federal government right now as they try to cut costs, it is possible that at the end of this year those tax benefits could go away. So if we decide, well, we'll do this and we'll see what it's like, and maybe in a couple of years we'll do another one, the tax benefits may not be there, and it may not be possible to do another one past this year. So it may be worth considering taking on a second one of these in this year because it works now, and it's all savings. You take on a second one, you double these savings.
It actually have to be built by the end of this year.
I think that's a good assessment.
All right. Well, for right now, I think the question before us is on the net metering contract that's being offered. So, are there any further comments about that issue?
One more question. I think
Okay.
it comes here rather than after we vote, but you can tell me if it's not. If once we approve this, you'll start negotiating and developing a contract with Integrated Solar, if this is what we approve. Okay, I would like to have that contract include a commitment from Integrated Solar to hire any new employees that are added to their employee list as a result of this process, or of this project and this contract, that they hire people who are domiciled in Brattleboro, and particularly that they contact the Career Center for recommendations of people that they can hire. If we're going to be spending this money in this community, and we spend a lot of money educating these kids, particularly in the Career Center, with all the skills that are going to be needed in this project, it makes sense that we educate them for careers. We should try and help them get a job as well. So I'd like to have that condition of the contract.
Well, that's definitely properly raised now.
I thought so.
Yeah. So, anybody have any comments on that?
Go ahead.
John or Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a great idea, but I just don't know.
It's not the first time you heard it.
Yeah. No, but I just don't know personally, like, what those jobs are and what the skills are that are going to be needed in that job, and I would hate us to put a condition on that they can't meet. Because I don't know what...
it could be... well, go ahead and finish that one.
You know, I mean, I just don't know, like, what jobs, what are the skills that they need for the people to have. So I just get worried about that.
John?
Can it be more of a suggestion?
Well, if it's a suggestion, then they can decide not to. And I think in terms of skill level, if it's an engineer that they need, and they can't get that person in this town or some really specific discrete skill, then certainly we could have that included. And we could also say it is our intention, or there are other ways we can word it. But I think we need to recognize that we're educating all these kids, and there aren't jobs for them. And particularly, these people are in Brattleboro, so it's more likely that they're going to look in this area. But for some of the other contracts we'll be looking at later, there are people from away, and they're not going to be looking here unless we tell them they have to. And we're going to give these people, they're going to make a couple of $1 million on this deal. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask them to spend some of it on people here in this town that are going to buy their cars here, and their lunch here, and their books here, and get their editions put on here.
Barb?
A couple things. One is I would want to talk with legal counsel about the legality of putting any kind of condition like that on there. The other thing is that if you're talking about the career center, it's a regional career center. And to have the people have to be living in Brattleboro, you could be limiting that.
That's my intention. When we pay for the Brattleboro students to the Career Center, not to the other regional students.
And I personally think that too. I would have to ask. I think that will be a difficult contract to negotiate, and I'm not sure. Did the school do that?
What's that?
Did the school put that in their contract?
No.
If I could make a suggestion.
Yes, please.
Maybe if we, in negotiating the contract, were able to express the select board's concern and interest in hiring locally and ask them how they would address that. I believe you have to approve their contract anyway, so if they bring their suggestions of what they might be able to do to address that concern, may address what you're looking for.
That's reasonable, given all the questions that we have about doing this. It also will give us an indication of how companies are going to respond to the suggestions as opposed to the contract language.
Mm-hmm.
And if we find that they don't really go along, or they say, oh yeah, well, nice suggestion, but we're not going to do it, or we didn't do it, then we'll know that, or at least I'll know, and I'll be asking for support to make it language in the next contract. And actually, we've got several more contracts. I want to say the same thing, because I really think we need to be hiring people in Brattleboro. We've got an unemployment problem. We've got kids that are being trained in all the skills needed to have a career. And a lot of those are general, a lot of those are specific. But there are kids, and they need jobs. And there are probably plenty of people at the unemployment office in a similar situation.
Lester?
I think that's a good suggestion. I think we also need to recognize that the companies that come forward with a fixed price based on a certain set of assumptions, and that we can't change, that it wouldn't be fair to change the rules in a way that means that they can't meet the obligations. So I think that we need to just take it back to them, the suggestion and the desires. I think the other thing is that if the town is potentially going to do another one of these or another project in the future, that there's a lot of incentive to listen to what's been said.
Barb?
If there's going to be, I guess I feel as though this is kind of out of the blue for me, so I don't even know enough to say, do they have, are they training this at the Career Center? I couldn't even tell you if they are, or if putting that in here doesn't make sense, or it would even make sense. So I would, if that is going to be continuing, if the board is going to be looking at doing this moving forward, I have a lot more work I need to do, because one is, if you're putting out requests for proposals and then you're putting in a very, what I would consider stringent requirement, then you have to put that in your request for proposals. And I think then the board also needs to understand, we need to figure out what are the pros and cons of doing that, what are the additional costs and not the additional costs. We have unemployment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there is an unemployed person who has the skills of building a photovoltaic system. And so I think to make that, I have concerns about making that adding that on at this time in the process. And then,
And if you'd identify yourself, I didn't get your name last time.
Rex James, Region Solar. Actually, what Dave was talking about is not so abstract. Our company actually teamed up with River Valley Technical Center specifically to build a jobs program around these programs should we win them. So, it's something that we've addressed head on.
And River Valley Tech Center has a very different structure
Right,
than our regional career center.
Right. I've also talked to, and I'm meeting with yours as well. I happened to wasn't able to do it before your RFP. We did it for the RFP that we supplied to Bellows Falls, so that's why we're there. But I've already been talking to your fellow down here. But that brings the question, when RFPs go out and a board selects an RFP, quite often there are measured aspects to an RFP. The process of selection is a weighted, can be a weighted program, and quite often a weight is given for local, and you can specifically identify the 5 areas of weight that you're going for, and it can be that 70% is value, straight value, and then you can go 10, 10, 10, 20, 10, and bring in that you're valuing it on jobs, so that you absolutely do have the ability to create a weighted average, RFP decision, which will incent companies such as mine to do these things. So.
I was going to move this on.
Right. Do we have a motion?
Can I say something and then
Oh,
make
yeah.
a motion?
Yeah.
So I am going to make a motion, but I really want to be very clear in my appreciation for you raising that, and I think that I just want to combine that with the point that Lester made of particularly because we do have other contracts coming up, that I do think this comes into play at the RFP stage, and you're just not, you three aren't benefiting from, you're coming in at this point and not when we did the RFP, but I think that I would love to see this integrated into that process and move forward. That said, I do move to approve entering into a net metering contract with Integrated Solar of Brattleboro, Vermont, with the terms specified and the Select Board's recommendation that they respond to the possibility of hiring people locally. Just a recommendation.
There's a motion. Is there any further discussion about that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. Next matter on the agenda.
We're going to direct them for...
Okay. Yes, so you gave 4 questions. It was...
I have a fifth.
Go
ahead.
Okay, the 4 were...
Fixed price.
Another one along these lines. Fixed, and this is sort of increasing risk and reward as we go forward. The next thing would be a fixed price for electricity, which has more risk than this and also more reward. The next one after that would be the town owning a system. Another more risk, more work, more reward. And then the 4th option is leave things alone for now. And then the 5th?
Well, the 5th is kind of along the lines of figure out what's the best way to go forward, and then to consider a much larger vision of the whole thing, not just to pay our bills, but to think about, if you're looking at 15 to 18% reduction in the cost, look at some of the large electricity consumers in town and consider selling the electricity to them and reaping that 15%. And if you think about some of the large nonprofits like the hospital or the retreat or some larger corporations, they use a lot of electricity. And for the places, the nonprofits that don't pay us taxes, that would be a way that they could actually contribute to the town. It wouldn't cost them anything. And again, there's no or little risk, but there are greater returns, from as far as I can tell, from the town owning them. But we have to go out and get a bond and take on all that obligation. But to just think about filling that entire area down at the Waste Management District with 500 KRAs. Now, the Green Mountain Power has to agree to take from more than one. And the legislation that created the credit that makes this work has got 8 more years to run. We don't know what's going to happen with the subsidies. But if enough municipalities and enough schools, there's a lot of interest from schools. I've had a bunch of calls since Howard's article. And if enough municipalities and schools do it, the legislature will, I'm sure, will extend that credit because there's going to be so much pressure to do it. Green Mountain Power agreed to accepting up to 4% of their statewide electricity from these local generation facilities, which is the state, based on the state's goal to go to get 90% renewable. And so just think about how we might, or whether we might want to do a whole bunch of them and look at it as generating significant amounts of revenue. It's something that we can get a premium on without having to charge more. If we wanted to charge more for treating waste, it would actually come out of people's wallets. Whereas with this, there's no additional cost to the taxpayers.
Seems to me that there's a discussion to be had here
Another out of the blue one
about there's a discussion
to advice for how to not get you out of the blue. Let me know.
There's a discussion to be had here about what steps we want to take going forward. And I don't know if it can productively begin now with the other items that are on the agenda. So unless the board wants to have this discussion now, my suggestion is that we put it on the agenda either the next meeting or 2 meetings from now.
Can we go a couple meetings?
I would like to do that. The first meeting in May.
Let you guys just work.
And whatever suggestions there are about approaches to this, let's try to gather them and address them in some sort of memo form, if possible, beforehand, so that we've got the background for that first May meeting.
Great.
Work? Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that? We did vote.
Okay.
Did we vote? Jan?
Did we vote?
We did, 5-0.
See, it's getting late. We don't remember if we voted anymore.
This is turning into the town representative meeting.
We've been going since 5 o'clock. The next item on the agenda is a contract with BUR Construction of Claremont, New Hampshire for $314,000 for reconstruction of Strand Avenue retaining wall. Barb or Hannah? Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
Big night for you.
Look at who you brought with you.
And Rick is here because I think he started.
It's moral support.
We're moving on with the business.
I thought he was retired.
I thought so too.
I guess not.
Strand Avenue, this is a retaining wall project, and it was started several years back. With that, I'll kick it over to Hannah to say where we're at today.
The Strand Avenue project was released for bid, if I recall correctly, last October. And at the time, only one bid was submitted. So the town decided to put that back out to bid to make sure they were getting a good price. It was put back out for bids, and we received 5 bids, varying from the lowest bid of $314,667.63 from BUR Construction in Claremont, New Hampshire, to $528,756 from Northern Construction out of Massachusetts. And the DPW recommends that we accept the low bid from BUR Construction. I've heard from our engineering tech, Gary King, that we have had contracts with BUR in the past and that we have had good experiences with them.
The Strand Avenue retaining wall, if you've been on that road, part of the reason that makes it it's a difficult project, and it's actually the engineering of it, is partly because there's not a lot of road there. And that with the fact that this retaining wall is
It's actually 2 separate retaining walls.
Yeah, and it's the old rock retaining wall. We
Correct.
have, pardon?
Correct.
Yeah, and we have done a lot of neighborhood outreach on this project. Steve and probably Rick, you two met numerous times with the neighbors in that area, because it's trying to redo a retaining wall, particularly the old kind of stone retaining walls. They have character, and you want to retain that character, but at the same time, it's really expensive. And you're doing that, again, in a pretty restricted area.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to close Strand Avenue?
And we looked at that, and think about it,
We
what other
actually
ways
did
to go
that.
around it?
I know.
All the accesses to that are terrible.
Oh, I know. It's.
So we're going to be rebuilding the stone wall.
There will be
Go ahead.
There will be drainage work, and the retaining wall on the downslope holding the road up will be rebuilt, as well as the retaining wall holding the mountain back from the road. That
Right, but
will
what I'm
be-
asking, they're not putting up metal like there is on Union Hill. It's going to be,
No.
going to be the stone wall again.
What's being done on the wall that's holding back the slope on the upside of the road, they're leaving the stone wall in place, and they're using a process called soil anchoring. They're going to have a drilling company come in and actually drill,
Horizontally.
I don't know how many, but horizontally into the mountain, would install a rod, pour concrete, inject concrete, grout into that, and then they're going to pour a new concrete face onto the stone wall that has a stone imitation form to meet some aesthetic concerns. And then the wall holding up the road will actually be a concrete block wall, is that correct? With a poured concrete cap.
And just to be, the retaining wall that's holding up the road was actually not just a stone one. It actually was made with a lot of old sidewalk. That's how
Granite curbing.
Granite curbing. That's where they used to take, when they would take up sidewalks,
Yep.
they would use it as retaining walls. Or
Any further inquiry about this?
Economically, you couldn't rebuild that wall with stone. I mean, it's so cost.
And it's really close to that house.
It's really close to that.
It really is an access problem
Yeah.
more than anything
Have
else.
the neighbors been informed of the plans?
Yes, we've been involved in it. from
They've been-
the
5
beginning.
years ago.
Yeah, no, this has been, I mean, that's one of the reasons it's been
Yeah.
a really long project, is that there's been quite a bit of neighborhood meetings, quite a number of neighborhood meetings, because it is an issue when you're taking something that's
Pretty
a
old
stone
and
wall like
beautiful.
that and redoing it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Next generation.
We're ready for a motion.
Want me to do it? Okay, I move we enter into a contract with Burke Construction from Claremont, New Hampshire in the amount of $314,667.63 for the reconstruction of Strand Avenue retaining wall.
Any further discussion?
63 cents. How they came up with that.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. The next matter on the agenda is ratification of the contract with Dufresne Group. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good night. Ratification of the contract with Dufresne Group for engineering services for the east side of the Main Street sidewalk project. Barb?
This is my asking forgiveness. In November, the board authorized me to enter into contract negotiations with Dufresne Group for engineering services. There was an RFP had gone out. We had received, I believe, like 8 proposals. We had a small committee made up of the chamber and some other Wyndham Regional Commission, et cetera, came with the Dufresne Group, mainly because of their expertise in having worked with transportation enhancement grants. Normally, I am authorized to negotiate and to enter into agreements, and that's what I did. And when David asked me a question about the sidewalk project, and I went back to look at that, And that's when I realized that I wasn't actually authorized to enter into the contract, which I did. And so what I'm asking you for at your first meeting is to ratify the contract agreement between the town of Brattleboro and New Franklin.
Barb, can you talk a little bit just to the expertise that's needed in dealing with engineering of this project and why you felt the Frame Group was the right entity to hire?
Transportation enhancement grants are incredibly, they're a state grant, it's $300,000, they are incredibly bureaucratic. You don't get a transportation enhancement grant done in typically any less than 2 years. When you get the grant, you have 10 years to complete it, and it is because of all of the requirements of those grants. It is important, the committee felt that it's important to have someone who's worked with transportation enhancement grants in the past, because it will help to make the process a bit easier. There just are a lot of requirements in those grants, and in fact, we received this grant prior to the Main Street project, the paving project, and I had talked with our project consultant with the state at that time to see if we could expedite it to get it done with that paving, to which he laughed and he said, you're never going to be ready to do this. And in fact, then the state said that we couldn't start it until the Main Street project was done, because they didn't want us to try to get it done and to slow down the Main Street project. And so we anticipate, we signed a contract with them earlier this year, and we won't be going out for bid for construction until spring of next year.
Anybody have any questions or comments about this?
She owes us.
And I'll just comment that since we had the meetings, or began having meetings about the sidewalk reconstruction on the east side of Main Street in the last month, I had been under the impression that we might be getting ready to do the construction work. And it was that inquiry that led me to speak with Barb and say, where exactly are we? Because I didn't go to the meeting about the east side of Main Street sidewalk reconstruction. And Barb said, we've done the engineering, but not the construction bids. And then she came back and said, oops, I signed the contract. So that's why we're here for ratification. So I move to ratify the contract agreement between the town of Brattleboro and Dufresne Group for engineering services on the Main Street sidewalk project for $50,100. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0.
That's my one.
The next item on the agenda is renaming the road into the country club, and we're going to pass that item until another meeting at the request of the applicant.
I was excited.
Sorry. We want to make sure it's the right road, you know. And so the remaining items on the agenda are to set the goal-setting meeting and to deal with warrants. And I want to deal with, we'll schedule this special meeting, but we also have to deal with warrants. So do we want to have a morning meeting or an afternoon meeting to set the goals?
We haven't had a scheduling discussion with new board members yet.
I mean, it's hard for me in the morning. I mean, they're just tough.
Budget time, we may have to.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I realize that.
But
For this one, are you talking scheduling generally?
no, just now, for this meeting.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, just because we don't have anything for next week, I would propose this time next week, just because
Yep.
usually it's...
Or even earlier. I mean, if we can do...
That's fine, too.
Yeah.
Like 5:30.
So Tuesday, April 9 at 5:30?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm not here. Sorry, I just wrote I just realized. I'm sorry.
Anybody for Tuesday, April 9 at 5:30?
You're killing us.
When are you back?
On Thursday. So I could do Thursday evening.
Thursday, the 11th?
5:30. I'm so sorry.
At 5:30?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Kate, you can't, you're making a face.
Oh, she makes faces.
I guess I could.
All right,
I'm gonna be in trouble, but.
So,
Thursday, April 11, 5:30 for goal-setting meeting.
Here at 5:30.
Yeah.
Do you want to come with them, or do you want?
Well, I think that if you are able, to all board members, if you are able to put your goals down in writing, 3 or 4, and forward them to the town manager before that meeting, it will help facilitate the process. I'm hoping we're going to be able to do this in 1 hour and a half or 2 hour meeting. Took 2 meetings last time, but.
Good goals.
But we've got your
It did.
goals to look at this time.
The one
Did.
where we sat in the middle of the room?
Yeah, don't you remember we started? I'll talk with you about it after.
Yeah.
David, when did you want those in by?
If you can get them in by Wednesday.
Okay, ASAP.
It'll give Barb a chance to look at them Thursday. That work?
So how long are we thinking it's gonna take?
An hour and a half, 2 hours tops.
So this is Thursday.
Yeah, that's all right.
Thursday the
All right, so Thursday, the 11th of April at 5:30 here. Do we have the room here?
Sure.
Then, the next item on the agenda is warrants. And as to warrants, we need to assign responsibility among the board members for weekly coming in to review the warrants. I will note that on the school boards, the warrants actually are reviewed or ratified at each meeting, and that is not the process we use. They're included in our binder, but the individual board member reviews them, and then we don't discuss them at the board. But we just need everybody to volunteer for like a 2.5 month period. So who wants to do it first?
Hey, don't let everybody jump at it.
Well, is there any?
No, it just means
is there any
weekly.
training
No.
involved?
No, you've already done it at the school district, right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of coming in, there's some
Read through them and sign them.
There's some
And you're
suggestions here.
so-
And
Yeah.
John's here.
And when does
John's
it
always
need-
available.
When does it need to be?
Usually Wednesday or
Wednesday or
Thursday,
Thursday.
Every Wednesday and Thursday?
Yep.
pretty much.
Okay. I'm gonna
So,
remember that.
I mean, I can do the first couple and a half months. Ken, are you going to take a shift before you split, or are you just going to figure it out?
I have to say, I don't want to turn this into an agenda item. Like, this is one of those duties that is impossible for someone who does not work in town. So
That's right.
My
It
shifts,
really is.
my shifts have been really so difficult for me, and I didn't even take one of them.
I'll take the
last
second
year.
one, I
Right.
have no problem.
Well, then let's just do
Yeah.
4 3-month shifts, and when we get
Yeah, all right.
somebody new on board, we can give them 6 months. So I'll take the first 3 months. And John, you'll take the second 3?
Yep.
Kate or Dave, you just choose.
Somebody just
All
tell
right.
me when to show up.
So Kate will do the next 3, and then Dave will do the last 3.
Okay.
All right? So we've got that set up. If you have any questions about the review of the warrants, ask John, ask Barb. I thought about trying to put more of a process in place last year, but never happened.
Yeah. Just one other quick thing. I'm going to be gone the next meeting,
Well, so am I.
and so are you.
You can do anything you want. So there's going to be 3 of you, so we'll
So
try
good luck.
to... Well, we'll try to pare down the agenda.
Right. That's what I'm-
Yeah.
For
I
this
decided
meeting.
We don't need your help.
You don't need your help. Yeah. All right.
Oh, fine. Then run it yourself.
We will.
We may just
All right.
approve the FY15 budget.
And then the remaining items on the agenda are calendar and adjournment.
On Thursday, April 4th
Wait,
at
are
6. There.
Picking,
Something happened?
put off the other committee appointments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
and then I can move.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
On Thursday, April 4th at 6:30 p.m., the Skate Park Committee will be meeting in the Hannah Cosman Meeting Room. On Monday, April 8th at 6 p.m., the Planning Commission will be meeting in the Select Board Meeting Room. Also on Monday, the 8th at 6 p.m., the Rec and Parks Board will be meeting in the Gibson-Aiken Center. On Tuesday, the 9th, April 9th at 4 p.m., the Arts Committee meets in the Select Board Meeting Room. Also on Tuesday, the 9th at 4:30 p.m., the Finance Committee meets in the Hannah Cosman Meeting Room. Also on Tuesday the 9th at 4:30 p.m., the Wastewater Treatment Plant Upgrade Oversight Committee will be meeting at the Wastewater Treatment Plant. And finally on Tuesday the 9th at 7 p.m., the Tree Advisory Committee will be meeting in the Hannah Cosman Room. On Thursday, April 11th, the Select Board will be meeting at 5:30 p.m. for a goal setting right here in the Select Board Meeting Room. On Friday the 12th at 10 a.m., the ADA Advisory Committee will be meeting in the Marlboro College Graduate Center. On Monday, April 15th at 7 p.m., the Development Review Board will be meeting here in the Select Board Meeting Room. And on Tuesday, April 16th at 6:15 p.m., we will hold our next regular select board meeting, and I move to adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, BCTV. Thank you for everybody for watching and participating.
Good night. Hey, not bad for our first meeting.
See you tomorrow.
Huh?
Did you find in the packet where the list of names and who? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the eating, I noticed. But I used to